Chapter 693. This time, the myriad deity sect has suffered heavy casualties. As long as the holy masters from the ninth heaven don't come down, they won't be able to do anything big in a short period of time. Not bad, this little guy is amazing. He's right. Blindly trying to stop them isn't a good idea. Humans need a source of faith. Perhaps this is the best way to deal with the gods. The heavenly venerables sighed as they watched the battle in Nether Abyss Valley. At this moment, celestial venerable Su seemed to have sensed something, and her expression changed slightly. Beside her, Qi Xing's gaze also turned gloomy. There's a powerful aura heading towards the Nether Abyss Valley. It's divine power. I'm afraid it's a god. Once Qi Xing's words came out, everyone's expression changed. That's impossible. The seals of the other gods are all under our control. No other gods have broken the seals. What's going on? Where did this god come from? Qi Xing couldn't sit still anymore. His figure flashed and he was about to head to the Nether Abyss Valley. No matter how strong Chu Kuangren was, he was still below the heavenly honorable realm. If he were to go up against a deity, he would most likely be no match for him. However, just as he was about to move, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him and an extremely powerful divine power aura suddenly erupted. It was a god with a crocodile's head and a black axe in his hand. His pale yellow eyes were staring at 7 punishers. Heaven Executioner, there's no way you can interfere. The subordinate divine crocodile god of the sea god. Qi Xing looked at the god in front of him with an incomparably gloomy expression. The crocodile god was one of the 2 superior gods that had been unsealed in the firmament star. It was the subordinate god of the sea god, one of the 33 prime gods. Get out of my way or die. The 7 punishment palm had a heavenly punishment Tao pattern circulating, and it spoke in a cold tone. The crocodile god didn't back down. He laughed and said, "If you were at your peak, I wouldn't have dared to stand in front of you. But in the ancient battle against the gods, your heaven executioner was severely injured. I don't think you've recovered yet. I wonder how much power you can use now." "It's enough to kill you. Then I really want to give it a try." The crocodile god held the black axe in his hand. God power flowed out of his body. Many patterns circled around his body and shook the space around him. Boom! The divine power and the emperor aura collided. The entire sky trembled because of this power. While the crocodile god and Qi Xing were fighting, the battle between the God Shadow army and the myriad god sect was coming to an end in the Netherworld Valley. But just when everyone thought that the battle was about to end, a powerful energy fluctuation suddenly erupted in the sky above the Nether Abyss Valley. Chu Kuangren's eyes flashed as he looked towards the sky. A black-robed figure slowly descended, and the barrier set up by the followers of the Nether God did not affect him at all. In the void, the believers of the Nether God seemed to sense something, and their faces lit up with joy. This power, it's the Nether God, the Nether God. He was ecstatic, and his eyes were filled with fanatical worship. The Golden Armor leader and the other 4 had also noticed the changes in the Nether Abyss Valley. They looked at each other before they retracted their formation and flew back to Chu Kuangren's side. To them, Chu Kuangren's safety was their top priority. This Osiris deity that had suddenly appeared in front of Chu Kuangren already had the power to hurt him. That was why Chu Kuangren had immediately retreated to defend himself. Nether God, what a familiar name. Chu Kuangren smirked as he looked at the newcomer. The newcomer, which was the Osiris deity, was also looking at Chu Kuangren. When their eyes met, they could see the coldness in each other's eyes. "Heretic, we meet again," the Osiris deity said coldly. "What, haven't you suffered enough in the emperor burying coffin?" Chu Kuangren stood with his hands behind his back and said indifferently. Upon hearing that, the Osiris deity's eyes instantly turned gloomy. As the Osiris deity, one of the strongest deities, he had never suffered much since he was born. However, the experience in the emperor burying coffin was definitely his first. That made him hate Chu Kuangren even more. "Heretic, the one in the emperor burying coffin is merely an incarnation of a strand of my will. However, the one before you right now possesses a divine body. Crushing you to death is as easy as crushing an ant." The Osiris deity said coldly. Oh, a godly physique? Chu Kuangren's interest was piqued. He knew that it was impossible for the Osiris deity to have broken the seal. Otherwise, his aura would not be this strong. If that was the case, where did this so-called godly physique come from? Shall AI analyze this Osiris deity? Yes, the spirit of omniscience, Shao AI, was activated. Information about the Osiris deity appeared in his mind, including the godly physique of unknown origin. A godly physique that was refined using the power of faith? Chu Kuangren was intrigued. Needless to say, this godly physique must have been created by the Myriad Deity sect. The Myriad Deity sect actually had a way to utilize the power of faith. This is too much of a surprise. Just as he was thinking about how to obtain the method to utilize the power of faith from the Myriad Deity sect, he noticed that there was a cloaked lady beside the Osiris deity, and she had a familiar aura. This aura, it's that chilling chi. Back then, you were the one who broke the seal that I set up and opened the demonic passage, Chu Kuangren said coldly to the cloaked lady with a bone-chilling murderous intent in his eyes. The Ashura tribe was destroyed because of this person. The cloaked lady, who was the lady goddess, chuckled. So what if I am? Are you planning to avenge the Ashura tribe? That's what I was thinking. The Osiris deity is here. How dare you act so arrogantly? The lady goddess sneered. She had absolute confidence in the Osiris deity. Beside her, the Osiris deity's face darkened. How could Chu Kuangren have the leisure to care about others when he, a Lord God, was here? To the Osiris deity, Chu Kuangren was looking down on him. He snorted. Heretic, I'll make you pay 100-fold for what you did to the Emperor's coffin today. He then pointed a finger at Chu Kuangren from afar. A pitch-black giant finger materialized. The Golden Armor leader and the other 4 lords immediately unleashed a joint attack. 5 different types of lights circulated in the air before they converged and blasted towards the giant finger. 2 horrifying energies collided at the same time. The void was blasted apart, forming a gigantic hole. As for the 5 commanders, they were also sent flying. Heretic, you have a decent army, but if you think you can stop me with them, you're too naive. The Osiris deity sneered. With his divine physique, he could already unleash the power of a deity. Although it was not as powerful as his real body, it was still the power of a deity. It was not something that an initial emperor could withstand. False deity, I'm more than happy to show you the true power of a deity. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. How dare you call me a false deity? The Osiris deity was enraged. Wave after wave of divine power gushed out from his body like a tidal wave, slamming into the void. The Osiris deity's rage caused the entire realm to tremble. Chu Kuangren remained calm and said to the God Shadow army behind him, You guys continue to deal with the people from the Myriad Deity sect. Pay special attention to that woman, don't let her escape. As for this false deity, leave it to me. Chapter 694. Heretic, how dare you face me alone? The underworld deity sneered and looked at Chu Kuangren as if he was looking at a dead man. His mind was already filled with thousands of ways to torture Chu Kuangren. I managed to defeat you once in the Emperor burial coffin, so I can do it again now. A false deity is just a false deity. How can you be a match for me, the true black god? Chu Kuangren said calmly with his hands behind his back. The cultivators around him could not help but twitch their mouths at that. They all knew that Chu Kuangren's title as the true black god was only used to suppress the power of faith and stop the other deities. However, Chu Kuangren seemed to be addicted to acting. Even in the face of such a situation, he still had to brag about himself. Not bad. That was very professional. The crowd could not help but give Chu Kuangren a thumbs up in their hearts. Heretic, provoking my anger over and over again will only make your death worse. The underworld deity said coldly. He raised his hand to gather his divine power, and the pitch-black Taoist patterns formed into a giant finger. Upon seeing that, Chu Kuangren unleashed his majestic emperor's chi, ultimate emperor essence, and the perfect Tao, along with the invincible celestial reversal technique. When the two forces collided, it was as if two stars had collided. The surrounding void cracked and countless mountains crumbled. How did your strength improve so quickly? The underworld deity was a little surprised. Chu Kuangren was not even an emperor when he was in the emperor burial coffin. It had only been a few years, and his strength had already far surpassed the average emperor. Even the deities were shocked by his speed of improvement. Oh, is that surprising to you? False deity, you're weaker than I thought, Chu Kuangren said calmly. With a surge of his mind power, a giant colorful rune suddenly gathered in the sky. The spiritual qi within a radius of several million kilometers surged like 100 rivers converging into the sea, continuously pouring into the rune's power. The overflowing spiritual qi even formed a rare spiritual qi tide. The crowd could almost hear the sound of the tide lapping in their ears. The spiritual qi gathered in the rune and then formed into 9 colorful dragons. Each of the dragons was 10,000 feet long. They were all formed by the convergence of extremely pure spiritual power. It was the divine transformation of the 9 dragons. The 9 giant dragons roared in the sky before they swooped down towards Chu Kuangren. In just a few breaths' time, they had all entered Chu Kuangren's body, and the emperor's qi on his body had once again skyrocketed. Now, apart from the fact that he hadn't grasped world power yet, in terms of emperor energy cultivation alone, even a middle-level heavenly venerate emperor energy might not necessarily be able to compare to him. This scene left everyone dumbfounded. The emperors who were observing everything in the dark gulped and could not help but curse. F***C monster. In the distance, 7th executioner and crocodile deity, who were busy fighting, could not help but stop as they were shocked by Chu Kuangren. This guy can even use runes? Qi Xing said with surprise and joy in his eyes. This guy can actually unleash such power? This is bad. The crocodile god's expression was grave. The lesser water god, intermediate thunder god, and a few other deities in the palace fell silent as well. They stared at Chu Kuangren in the light mirror fearfully. Previously, no matter how strong Chu Kuangren was, they did not feel threatened because his strength was not strong enough to hurt a deity. However, things were different now. Now, even the intermediate thunder god could feel threatened. Not only that, one had to know that Chu Kuangren was not even 30 years old yet, which was ridiculously young for an emperor. He still had a lot of room for growth. No one could imagine how far he could go in the end. Could he be the second human ruler? The intermediate thunder god murmured. At the mention of the human ruler, the other deities could not help but fall silent. The human ruler was a name that was engraved in every deity's heart. Even the most contemptuous deities would feel fearful at the mention of the human ruler, or even fear. Chu Kuangren now reminded them of the human ruler. There won't be a second human ruler in this world, and he must not become one either. The lesser water god said coldly. A human king had launched a war against the gods, causing all the gods to be sealed, causing the prestige of the gods to be completely gone. What would happen if a second human ruler appeared? Inside the Nether Abyss Valley, Chu Kuangren absorbed the 9 dragons' qi into his body, and his strength skyrocketed. Then, under the underworld god's horrified gaze, he slowly raised his hand, and the mysterious heavenly punishment Taoist patterns flowed on his palm. The power of heavenly punishment. You're a heavenly executioner. How is this possible? The underworld god's expression changed. Chu Kuangren had given him too many surprises. False deity, show me your strength and fight for your survival. Chu Kuangren said calmly. He threw a punch, and the power of the technique of invincibility instantly erupted. It was as if the sun and moon had been turned upside down, and the stars had fallen. Underworld god finger. The underworld god growled and pushed his divine power to the limit. The pitch-black Taoist patterns condensed into a giant finger and attacked. However, when the two forces collided, the giant finger exploded, and the technique of invincibility blasted towards the underworld god like a hot knife through butter. Boom! The underworld god's divine body was injured, and he was blasted thousands of meters away. Is that all you've got? Chu Kuangren pressed on, and the descendant's self-sword at his waist flew out of its scabbard and landed in his hand. He then slashed with it. The sword chi was like a rainbow as it slashed towards the underworld god. Underworld god finger. The underworld god pointed his finger again, but he was once again blasted away. Although Chu Kuangren was not a heavenly venerable, his emperor's chi cultivation level was higher than a heavenly venerable's. Even a lower-level heavenly venerable might not be able to suppress him even if he used his lesser world. The underworld god's combat strength was only equivalent to a lower deity's, which was not much different from a lower-level heavenly venerable. Everyone was dumbfounded, and the myriad deity sects people looked like their worldview was about to collapse. The underworld god's believer, in particular, knelt on the ground and watched in disbelief as his body trembled violently. The deity that he worshipped was being brutally beaten by Chu Kuangren. How can this be? I've even used my deity physique, so the underworld god should be able to unleash the power of a deity now. But why is he still being suppressed by Chu Kuangren? This guy is not a heavenly venerable. The goddess looked at Chu Kuangren with an ashen face. She looked around and realized that the god shadow army had already sealed off the area. There was nowhere for her to go. D****. I don't believe this. Gates of the underworld open. After being pushed back by Chu Kuangren twice in a row, the underworld god was exasperated. He channeled all of his divine power and unleashed his divine power. In the void, a black gate appeared. There were carvings of mountains of corpses, seas of blood, ferocious evil spirits, and so on. When the underworld god's believers saw the gates of the underworld, hope reignited in his eyes. This is the underworld god's divine power. Once it's unleashed, it'll have the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. It'll definitely kill this heretic. When the gates of the underworld appeared, a sinister and eerie energy spread. Countless cultivators looked at the gates and were horrified. Then, the gates of the underworld opened, and countless ferocious evil spirits, Rakshasa, and Rakshasa gushed out as if they were going to devour the heavens and earth. Kill them. The underworld god growled, and the evil spirits and Rakshasas charged towards Chu Kuangren with terrifying momentum. Mere ghosts, how dare you act so presumptuously in front of a deity? Chu Kuangren gently raised his hand, and a crimson flame erupted. The moment the evil spirits and Rakshasas came into contact with the flame, they were all burned into ashes. This is the Phoenix Flames. How did you master the Phoenix Flames? The underworld god was extremely shocked. He had never heard of a human being who could master the godly Phoenix's flames. Even the flame overgod could not do it. So what if you've mastered the Phoenix Flames? My gates of the underworld is no longer the same as when I was in the emperor burying coffin. The evil spirits and Rakshasas inside are 10 times, no, 100 times stronger than before. And there are countless of them. Even if you have the Phoenix Flames, how long can you last? The underworld god yelled. Chu Kuangren glanced at the gates of the underworld and sneered. Look at how proud you are of a broken gate. I'll destroy it again. Chapter 695. A broken door. Watch me destroy it again. Chu Kuangren sneered. As he took a step forward, the 10,000 Taoist avatar condensed, and the majestic power of the avatar poured out like a torrent. It's this avatar again. The underworld deity's pupils dilated. He had seen this avatar before in the emperor burying coffin, but compared to Chu Kuangren, it paled in comparison. The 10,000 Taoist avatar let out a low growl and punched out. The power of various Taoist physiques combined and exploded, and with the support of the majestic emperor's chi and heavenly punishment Taoist patterns, the fist energy turned into a colorful torrent that blasted towards the door of the underworld. The power of that attack was unimaginably terrifying. Chu Kuangren was the only one who had the power of multiple Taoist physiques, including a large amount of supreme Taoist physiques. The ferocious evil spirits that filled the sky were all shattered by the fist energy, and the fist energy smashed onto the door of the underworld. With a loud boom, the surrounding wind and clouds surged, and the void exploded. The gate of the underworld cracked inch by inch and collapsed with a loud bang. The underworld deity suffered a backlash when his divine ability was broken. His face turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. This guy's strength. The underworld deity stared at Chu Kuangren with resentment and disbelief. He had never heard of anyone who could improve so quickly. How could this be? The underworld deity's believer was devastated. The door of the underworld was the underworld deity's strongest divine ability, and now, even this legendary divine ability had been destroyed by Chu Kuangren. Candle flame appear. The underworld deity suddenly took out a candle flame. The candle flame was gray in color, and it emanated a chilling aura. Everyone looked at the candle flame and could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. The goddess, on the other hand, had a glimmer of hope in her eyes. That's the underworld deity's candle, one of the mediums used to communicate with the underworld deity. It's a divine weapon, one that specifically targets the soul. This item can definitely be used against Chu Kuangren. The goddess had a look of anticipation in her eyes. Divine weapons, as the name suggested, were weapons used by the deities. To the deities, they were as important as emperor weapons to the emperors. Heretic, although this underworld god's candle is only a lesser god artifact, it is more than enough to deal with you. The god of the underworld snorted. The gray candlelight illuminated his face, making him look even creepier and colder. He chanted some strange syllables, and when the surrounding cultivators heard his voice, they felt as if their heads were about to explode. This was the second divine ability of the Nether God, the language of the Nether God. Damn, this is a soul attack. It is rumored that the god of the underworld is a god who controls the souls of the dead. It is reasonable that he would have a way to deal with souls. Damn, a soul attack. This is the weirdest attack in the world. It's impossible to defend against. Everyone hurriedly activated their spiritual thoughts to resist the soul attack. However, the effect of using spiritual sense alone was very limited. Fortunately, they were not the direct targets of the attack. Otherwise, even if they had 10 lives, it would not be enough to kill them. Everyone looked at Chu Kuangren, thinking that even Chu Kuangren would not be able to withstand such a soul attack. Boring attack. Chu Kuangren's voice interrupted the underworld god's whisper. He stood still on the spot while the underworld god's whisper surged towards him. However, it did not affect him at all. Inside his body, the Bodhi spirit sat on top of the lotus throne. Under the impact of the underworld god's whisper, it was unaffected. The Bodhi Lotus Scripture's 9th level was already comparable to an emperor. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, had cultivated to the 12th level in the burying emperor's coffin. His soul was so strong that even a heavenly honorable could not compare to it. Although the underworld god's whisper was powerful, it still could not hurt him. With the underworld god's whisper unleashed by this divine body and the underworld god's candle in my hand, even a heavenly honorable would not be able to withstand it. Yet it still can't hurt your soul. Which level has your lotus scripture reached? Have you completed it? The underworld god said in shock. He knew that Chu Kuangren's lotus scripture was extremely powerful because of his cultivation. However, he was no longer the same as when he was in the burying emperor's coffin. The underworld god's whisper that he unleashed could affect even an upper heavenly honorable. Yet, Chu Kuangren was unharmed. The underworld god was dumbfounded. The others were dumbfounded too. Are you kidding me? Chu Kuangren knows soul techniques too? Moreover, it seemed like Chu Kuangren's emperor's chi cultivation was even more profound than his. Otherwise, the underworld god's whisper would have affected him. How many more surprises does this guy have in store for us? The emperors murmured. False deity, prepare to die. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. He took a step forward, and the 10,000 avatars behind him had already locked onto the underworld god. With a lift of his arm, he unleashed a punch that caused the entire void to collapse. The underworld god was forcefully destroyed by that punch. The myriad deity sects cultivators were utterly devastated by that scene. Even a deity had been killed by Chu Kuangren. What else could they do to fight against him? It's over. It's all over. Heresy, heresy. Why does such a heresy exist in this world? This doesn't make sense at all. Some of the devout believers knelt on the ground and wailed. Their faith was crumbling. Divine Shadow Army, listen up. Kill everyone on the spot. Chu Kuangren said coldly. In an instant, the sounds of slaughter echoed throughout the Nether Abyss Valley. The goddess of the myriad deity sects' expression changed. She channeled her emperor's chi to its limit and turned into a stream of light, trying to escape. However, a white figure suddenly appeared in front of her. Where do you think you're going? An indifferent voice rang out. Chu Kuangren slowly reached out his hand. The goddess wanted to dodge, but that hand followed her like a shadow, chasing her wherever she went. She wanted to resist again, so she channeled her emperor's chi to its limit and unleashed a punch. The chilly chi was enough to freeze the river water for hundreds of thousands of miles. However, the chilly chi was easily shattered when it came into contact with that palm. In just an instant, Chu Kuangren had single-handedly grabbed the goddess by her neck and lifted her into the air. Don't worry, I won't kill you for now. Your life will be taken by someone else, but your cultivation shall be destroyed. Chu Kuangren's gaze turned cold. Majestic Emperor's chi gushed out from his palm and forcefully entered the goddess's body. A loud bang came from the goddess's body, and after a scream, a huge amount of Emperor's chi gushed out. Her Emperor's chi had been shattered. Chu Kuangren had crippled her countless years of hard work and cultivation. This made the goddess extremely resentful towards Chu Kuangren. The deities will not let you go. Heh, we don't know who's going to let who go. Chu Kuangren sneered. Behind him, the myriad Taoist avatar unleashed a punch into the sky. The great formation of the underworld instantly exploded. To others, this formation was like a prison. However, to Chu Kuangren it was nothing. From now on, there will only be one true God in this world. Chu Kuangren's indifferent voice resounded. After the battle at the Nether Abyss Valley, Chu Kuangren had established the Black Heaven sect's reputation. The name, True God Black Heaven, resounded throughout the world. Chapter 696. After the battle at the Nether Abyss Valley, Chu Kuangren's name was firmly established. When he returned to the Black Heaven sect, he began to organize his gains from the battle. He had obtained many things from the various sections. There really is a way to use the power of faith. Chu Kuangren took out a jade scroll from the goddess Yin and Yang ring. That jade scroll recorded a method to use the power of faith known as the body refinement pond. It was Chu Kuangren's biggest gain from this trip. The body refinement pond of faith could be considered a technique, but it did not look like one at the same time. If a cultivator were to use this technique to absorb the power of faith, the efficiency would be ridiculously slow. In other words, the amount of spiritual chi that Chu Kuangren absorbed in 2 hours was equivalent to a year of using this technique to absorb the power of faith. Because of that, none of the myriad deity sects cultivators were willing to cultivate this technique. They would rather absorb the spiritual chi instead. However, this technique was a technique that the myriad deity sects' great cultivators had spent countless efforts to research. Moreover, this technique was no less mysterious than most emperor scriptures. The reason why they spent so much time and effort researching this technique was mainly because of the myriad deity sects' divine physique project. They wanted to use this technique to guide the power of faith to transform a mortal's body into a divine physique that was close to the body of a deity. That way, even if the deities were sealed, they could use some kind of descending ritual or a medium to guide the deity's will into the divine physique. This was the myriad deity sect's strategy to fight against the celestial honorable society. Shall AI analyze this technique? Yes. With the help of the all-knowing spirit, Shao AI, Chu Kuangren soon had a thorough understanding of the body-tempering pool of faith. He could not wait to try it out. Soon, he clearly sensed the faintly discernible power of faith surrounding him. With a thought, the power of faith began to flow into his body. Once the power of faith entered his body, it was converted into extremely pure spiritual power. After that, it was converted into Emperor's essence and gradually turned into Emperor's essence. A day and a night later, Chu Kuangren opened his eyes and frowned. Isn't this efficiency a little too slow? After refining a day's worth of faith energy, I haven't even managed to condense a tenth of the Emperor's essence, let alone a single stream. Even with his talent, it was impossible for others to do so. Even if they cultivated for 100 years, they might not be able to condense a strand of Emperor Qi. The efficiency was indeed not as good as him absorbing spiritual energy himself. He took out the cultivation method and studied it again. It seems that if I want to use this cultivation method, I have to improve it a little. Chu Kuangren was very familiar with creating his own techniques. In the past, he didn't create his own cultivation method for the power of faith because he didn't have a template. But now he did. He used the faith body tempering pool in his possession as a blueprint, and with the help of the omniscient spirit, Xiao AI, as well as his extraordinary comprehension ability, he gradually improved the flaws of the faith body tempering pool. Time flew, and a month passed. Chu Kuangren had finally fixed all of the flaws in the body tempering pool of faith. Besides that, he had also made some improvements to it. Now let's try again. Chu Kuangren smirked. With a thought, he began to circulate this cultivation method. In an instant, he sensed a large amount of faith power surrounding him, like a vast ocean. This was much more than what he had sensed a month ago. It seems that the Black Heaven sect has developed quite a bit in this 1 month. Chu Kuangren smiled in satisfaction. Then, he began to absorb the faith power. The surrounding faith power surged into his body like rivers flowing into the sea. The efficiency was more than 1,000 times faster than before. If the cultivators of the Myriad God sect were to find out about this, they would be terrified. Not only did Chu Kuangren use less than a day to master the faith body tempering pool that their ancestors had researched, but now he spent less than a month to improve it to 1,000 times the efficiency. How could they, the ancestors, still have any face left? Even their coffins could not hold them down. Wow, the effect is not bad. Chu Kuangren smirked. As a large amount of faith power surged into his body, it was as if he had swallowed countless supreme elixirs in one go. Spiritual power surged within his body. His ultimate emperor essence did not reject anything either. As long as it was spiritual power, it would be converted into Emperor Qi. As his Emperor Qi cultivation continued to increase, Chu Kuangren gradually entered a strange meditative state. His consciousness seemed to have left his body and was constantly floating in the void. He saw mountains and rivers, all kinds of rare beasts, common people living in peace and contentment, and he also saw warriors dying on the battlefield. His consciousness seemed to have merged with the world as he watched everything that was happening in the world. It was a wonderful feeling. Vaguely, Chu Kuangren seemed to understand something. A long time had passed. Chu Kuangren swam in the faith ocean and absorbed the faith power without restraint. His cultivation continued to increase. Not only that, but his understanding of the Tao was also increasing rapidly. It did not take long for him to master the realm energy. 2 months later, Chu Kuangren walked out of his closed-door meditation room. His current aura was no longer as vast as an ordinary emperor's. Instead, it was ordinary. Aside from his indescribably handsome face and temperament, there was not a single trace of the strength of an emperor on him. However, Chu Kuangren knew that he was unprecedentedly powerful. If he were to fight with the underworld god again, he would not even need to use any trump cards. He could destroy his opponent with one punch. Lower-level heavenly honorable. That was Chu Kuangren's current realm. However, realms did not equate to combat strength. His combat strength was undoubtedly far beyond this realm. Chu Kuangren had gained a lot in the past 2 months. Aside from mastering the realm energy and officially becoming a heavenly honorable, he had also raised his invincible technique to another level. His current invincible technique was equivalent to an ultimate mystery. Very few people in the human race could master such a profound mystery. In addition, he also discovered some extraordinary uses of the power of faith. Aside from increasing one's cultivation, it could also be used to gain insight into the Tao, strengthen one's soul energy, and so on. It could be said to have endless uses. This also strengthened Chu Kuangren's idea of collecting the faith power to fight against the gods. Not only could he strengthen himself, but he could also resist the gods' power. It was killing two birds with one stone, so why not? After exiting his closed-door meditation, Chu Kuangren's emperor's thoughts swept across the entire sky. He realized that it had been 4 months since he went into closed-door meditation. In these 4 months, without the myriad deity sects' interference, the Black Heaven sect's development had been accelerating. There were new believers joining almost every moment. Under such a trend, the Black Heaven sect soon occupied all the nearby prefectures and became the religion of many people. If all the living beings in the firmament star worship me, how far can my cultivation improve? Chu Kuangren clenched his fists with anticipation. When he arrived at the Black Heaven sect's great hall, Immemorial Sage and the others were in the middle of a meeting. When they saw him, they quickly went up to him. Congratulations, true deity. Some of the elders also followed the common people and greeted him as the true deity. After all, Chu Kuangren's performance in the Nether Abyss Valley could only be described as godly. Chapter 697. In the Black Heaven sect. In a room, the goddess of the myriad deity sect sat with her legs crossed. She was trying to contact the outside world through some means to save herself. Although her cultivation was crippled, she still had a remnant of her emperor's will. She was now using it to contact the survivors of the myriad deity sect. Chu Kuangren, I bet you didn't expect this. Even though my cultivation has been crippled, I still have the ancient conjurer's talent. I've cultivated a type of mind technique that allows me to contact the outside world. I won't give up so easily. The goddess of the myriad deity sect had a cold look in her eyes. Goddess, we've followed your instructions and used the remaining 2 deity bodies. Now, the wills of the fire deity and the tempest deity have arrived and are heading to the Black Heaven sect to save you. An emperor's voice rang in the goddess's mind. However, the goddess replied, Don't come to save me. My cultivation is now crippled. Even if you save me, I won't be of much use to the myriad deity sect. The most important thing now is to eliminate Chu Kuangren. However, Chu Kuangren is so powerful that most deities are no match for him. Even if there are 2 deities here, they are not much stronger than the Lord of the Underworld God. It's too risky to recklessly attack Chu Kuangren. To the Black Heaven sect. That's where Chu Kuangren's sect is. As long as we control the Black Heaven sect, we'll have the right to negotiate with him. The goddess analyzed calmly. As the goddess of the myriad deity sect, she had great respect for the myriad deity sect. To her, as long as she could eliminate the myriad deity sect's enemies, she was willing to sacrifice her life. The emperor who was talking to the goddess fell silent for a while before he said solemnly, Goddess, the gods are with you. Let's begin. I will definitely not disappoint the goddess's expectations. In the Black Heaven sect, Chu Kuangren stood under a large tree with a fallen leaf in his hand. He smirked when he sensed the goddess's mind power fluctuations. Has the operation begun? He had long known that the goddess had the conjurer's talent, which allowed her to communicate with the outside world. After all, the omniscient spirit's analysis was no joke. It had long analyzed her opponent's trump cards and cultivation techniques. Conjurer's talent. I didn't expect to meet another one other than myself. The myriad deity sect is really full of talents. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. He also had the talent of a psychic master, and telekinesis was one of his best techniques. In fact, it was not much weaker than his Emperor Qi cultivation. It's a pity that you chose to be a dog instead of a good person. A cold glint flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes. His figure disappeared from where he stood. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the goddess. Looking at the goddess who had no cultivation at all, he said indifferently, Do you know why I left you alive? If you want to kill me, then kill me. What nonsense are you spouting? Don't worry, you will die. However, the person who will kill you will not be me. There is someone you need to meet. Saying so, he grabbed the divine lady and used the spatial transportation technique. The 2 figures instantly disappeared from where they stood. When they reappeared, they were already in front of the Black Heaven sect's mountain gate. Black Heaven sect, why did you bring me here? A trace of panic appeared in the goddess's eyes. Chu Kuangren noticed it. He sneered in his heart. As expected, even if the Pantheon sect had other trump cards, they would not attack him directly. Their target was indeed the Black Heaven sect. Although Chu Kuangren knew what was going on, his expression remained unchanged. He brought the goddess into the Black Heaven sect and called for Zhan Hongying. The moment Zhan Hongying saw the goddess, the look in her eyes changed. A cold, murderous intent emanated from her body. With a whoosh, Zhan Hongying appeared in front of the goddess and sent her flying a few hundred meters away with a kick. She crashed into a wall. The goddess's cultivation was crippled, but she still had a broken emperor's body. Although she did not die from Zhan Hongying's kick, she could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood that contained a large amount of internal organ fragments. "I finally get to see you again," Zhan Hongying said coldly. "So you're a remnant of the Ashura tribe." The goddess looked at Zhan Hongying and understood why she had such a strong murderous intent. "If I knew this would happen, I would have spent more time to kill you." Zhan Hongying walked towards the goddess and stepped on her. She said coldly, "Unfortunately, you won't have that chance anymore. Today, I shall avenge my fallen tribesmen." "Sect leader, is it all right to leave her to me?" Zhan Hongying turned around and asked Chu Kuangren. "I brought her to you anyway." "Thank you." Zhan Hongying dragged the goddess by her clothes and walked out. "Don't follow me. It'll be a bloody scene." Although she said that, the crowd could not help but use their emperor's spiritual thoughts to observe her for a while. However, after a while, they stopped looking. Murong Xian gulped. "How cruel." Beside him, Nangong Huang could not help but nod with a pale face. It's best not to provoke her in the future. The crowd no longer cared about how Zhan Hongying killed the goddess. They looked at Chu Kuangren and asked him about his well-being. "Sect leader, I heard you started the Black Heaven sect and even became the true god Black Heaven," Murong Xian asked curiously. "Yes. What does it feel like to be a true god?" It's not that different from being a sect leader." Chu Kuangren chatted with them. Just as they were chatting happily, Chu Kuangren looked into the distance with a cold gaze. "Oh, he's here." Murong Xian and Lan Yu sensed it too. What a powerful aura. "I'm afraid it's not something an ordinary emperor can compare to. Such an aura, it's a god." Lan Yu looked at Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren nodded. "Yes, a god." Suddenly, 3 rays of light arrived above the Black Heaven sect. It was an emperor and 2 gods. The emperor stood respectfully by the side of the 2 gods. The 2 gods were a man and a woman. The man had fiery red hair and a scorching aura emanated from his body. He was like a burning flame. The woman beside him was surrounded by countless wind blades, each of which was powerful enough to cut a mountain in half. These 2 were the Flame Master God and Windstorm Master God of the 33 Master Gods. However, like the Lord of the Underworld, their bodies were sealed, and the ones who had descended were only their thoughts. However, as Master Gods, they could unleash the power of a lower god with the help of the myriad god sects' 2 divine bodies. When the 2 of them joined forces, they could even fight a middle god. "Honorable God, this is the Black Heaven sect." The emperor of the myriad god sect said respectfully. "Oh, so this is the heretic's base camp? That heretic has challenged the god's authority again, and he still dares to call himself a true god. I must let him know the meaning of despair." The Flame Master God sneered. Beside him, the Windstorm Master God's beautiful face was cold as well, and her eyes were filled with murderous intent. "That's right. How dare the lowly humans try to bully the gods? They're asking for it." The emperor of the myriad god sect did not think anything was wrong when he heard the Windstorm Master God's words. He had always been taught that humans were slaves who served the gods. It was only reasonable for a master to scold his slaves. Chapter 698. In the sky above the Black Heaven sect. A majestic godly poise erupted, and a majestic divine power swept out, covering the entire Black Heaven sect in an instant. "Heretics, prepare to receive your judgment." In the sky, the Flame Overlord said indifferently. With a gentle lift of his hand, streaks of flames fell from the sky like meteors. If such a force were to fall on the Black Heaven sect, at least half of the Black Heaven sect's disciples would be dead or injured. However, the Flame Overlord did not care about that. All he wanted to do now was to kill and vent his anger. Once he had vented enough, he would leave a portion of the Black Heaven sect's disciples behind to negotiate with Chu Kuangren. On a mountain peak, the goddess, who was covered in blood and entangled by countless blood-colored vines, was overjoyed when she saw the fiery meteor shower. The deities are here. The Black Heaven sect is doomed. Chu Kuangren won't be able to protect you. Chu Kuangren's sudden return to the Black Heaven sect was indeed out of her expectations. However, she thought that with two deities working together, they would have a high chance of defeating Chu Kuangren. Moreover, they were in the Black Heaven sect. If they were to fight, the damage would undoubtedly be huge. Chu Kuangren might not be able to unleash his full combat strength since he was tied down. Don't worry. Even if your deities are here, they won't be able to save you. Zhan Hongying stepped on the goddess with one foot, holding a dagger dripping with blood. Just now, how many times did I count? Was it 1,167? Or was it 1,168? The fiery meteors covered half of the Black Heaven sect. Just as they were about to land, an invisible force suddenly expanded in midair, and the fiery meteors exploded in midair. The Flame Overlord's gaze froze. Oh, a strong cultivator's aura. A spatial tear opened above the Black Heaven sect. A white figure walked out. It's you, Chu Kuangren. Why are you here? The emperor of the Myriad Deity sect looked at Chu Kuangren with narrowed eyes. Chu Kuangren did not answer. He only glanced at him, and an emperor-grade lightning talisman quickly formed above him. Amidst the explosion, a bolt of lightning struck. That emperor was blasted into charcoal on the spot, and he couldn't be more dead. Some of the emperors who sensed the strange fluctuations in the Black Heaven sect released their emperor's thoughts to investigate. They were speechless when they saw this scene. Killing an emperor with a single thought. Apart from Chu Kuangren, only a handful of heavenly honorables and deities in the entire firmament star were capable of such a terrifying feat. However, the problem was, how many years had it been since Chu Kuangren became an emperor? If he was given a few more years, who knew to what extent he would grow? Windstorm Master Deity, Inferno Master Deity, I wonder how you guys fare against the undead deity? Chu Kuangren stood with his hands behind his back and asked. Heretic, since you're here, I'll have you killed along with me today. The Flame Master God scoffed out coldly. He raised his hand, and a flaming spear appeared in his hand. It was a divine weapon. There were Tao patterns intertwining and circulating on it, radiating light in all directions. Even though this wasn't the life god weapon of the Flame Master God, it was still a subordinate god of his. As a fire attribute god weapon, it was compatible with his attribute. Heretic, die! With a flick of his spear, a sea of flames surged towards Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren lifted his arm and a huge amount of scarlet phoenix flames gushed out. Phoenix fire, divine fire. The two types of flames burned so intensely that the entire void was almost melted. Even the light that shone upon it felt like it was being distorted. However, it did not take long before the phoenix fire started to corrode the divine fire instead. Your flames aren't hot enough. The Flame Master God's expression changed. Hurricane, hurry up and attack. The Windstorm Master God yelled as Taoist patterns spread out from her body, turning into a green tornado that spread out. When the tornado fell into the sea of flames, it miraculously reacted with the divine fire. The wind fueled the flames, overpowering the phoenix fire and counterattacked. The raging sea of flames instantly engulfed Chu Kuangren. Die, heretic! The Flame Master God roared as his terrifying flames burned in the sky. The temperature of the flames was so high that it dried up the land within 100,000 kilometers radius. The Windstorm Master God channeled his divine power to increase the intensity of the flames. The combination of wind and fire is quite interesting. Chu Kuangren stood in the sea of flames with a playful smile on his face. That smile pissed off the Flame Master God to the max. Heretic, how can you still smile when you're at death's door? Do you really think you can fight against two overgods with your own strength? Is this really that difficult? Chu Kuangren chuckled as his majestic emperor's chi spread out with him as the epicenter, instantly dispersing the sea of flames as 1,000 Taoist avatar formed. The terrifying avatar stood in the sky with countless Taoist patterns intertwining on it, representing different Taoist physique's powers. The exquisite 9 orifices sword heart, infallible tormented physique, chaotic Taoist physique, transcendent coalescence, holy radiant physique, fallen darkness physique, all sorts of supreme Taoist physiques and top-notch Taoist physiques were gathered on one avatar. Its terrifying power shook the heavens and the earth. Many people could not help but tremble at the sight. No matter how many times they saw this avatar, they were still shocked. How could someone possess so many Taoist physique abilities? It was just too unbelievable. The 1,000 Taoist avatar stood in the sky, its power destroying the sea of flames and the tornado. The gazes of the two overgods became extremely solemn. They looked at each other and unleashed their divine power to its limit. The windstorm master god then took out a giant ring. That ring was a divine weapon as well. Just as the two overgods were about to fight against Chu Kuangren's 1,000 Taoist avatar with the divine weapons in their hands, Chu Kuangren glanced at Black Heaven sect and gently lifted his hand, dispersing the 1,000 Taoist avatar. Everyone could not understand what was going on. Was he not going to fight anymore? The windstorm master god, on the other hand, seemed to have sensed something. He glanced at Black Heaven sect and sneered. This guy is worried about the humans down there. If he goes all out, the shock waves from the battle will definitely affect them. The flame master god also came to his senses and sneered. Humans are always like this. They're always bound by these useless emotions. That's good too. Let's see how much combat strength he can unleash with the shackles in his heart. With the divine weapons in their hands, the two overgods were more confident. The emperors who were watching the battle could not help but frown. This is bad. If he doesn't go all out against these two overgods, how is he going to fight them? Chu Kuangren, what are you going to do this time? Just when everyone was wondering if Chu Kuangren was going to be in trouble, they saw a mysterious fluctuation emanating from his body. That fluctuation caused the bodies of all the emperors to shake violently. This energy is the realm energy. Oh my God, how can it be the realm energy? He's ascended to the heavenly honorable realm. Above the Black Heaven sect, the two overgods stared at Chu Kuangren with their eyes wide open. They suddenly felt a sense of fear. This is my first time using this power. Let me test it out on you two overgods, Chu Kuangren said. He gently lifted his arm, and countless mysterious Taoist patterns spread out with him as the center. A huge amount of Emperor's Qi gushed out and combined with the Taoist patterns to form an incredibly mysterious realm energy. Chapter 699. The flames were extinguished, the wind stopped, and the clouds stopped moving. At that moment, the entire world was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. The Inferno Overgod and the Windstorm Overgod were keenly aware of the changes in the space around them. It was as if they had been stripped out of the firmament realm. Chu Kuangren stood on top of the clouds and said, "Welcome to my world. Now, are you ready to die?" Then, he gently lifted his arm and unleashed his technique of invincibility. The celestial phenomenon of the sun and moon being reversed and the stars falling was instantly formed. The Inferno Overgod roared and unleashed a punch, and a large amount of flames turned into a ferocious beast that charged towards Chu Kuangren. However, the moment his flames were unleashed, they were suppressed by the surrounding realm energy and dissipated into nothingness. Boom! The technique of invincibility landed on the Inferno Overgod, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood and fly backward. The divine body that he was attached to had broken several bones. Realm energy. This is the realm energy that only a human heavenly honorable can master. ****. The Inferno Overgod roared. Beside him, the Windstorm Overgod also channeled his divine powers to attack Chu Kuangren. Countless wind blades formed a boundless storm, each of them possessing the power to tear the void apart. The storm formed by the combination of these boundless wind blades was like a calamity that could destroy the world. It was truly shocking. However, Chu Kuangren merely lifted his arm gently in the face of this. An invisible force erupted from the surrounding space, shattering the countless Taoist patterns within the destructive windstorm. The apocalyptic windstorm turned into a gentle breeze that brushed past Chu Kuangren's hair. This is my world. And I am the only true god here. False gods like you are but ants in my palm. I can destroy you with a flip of my hand, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Then he slowly reached out his arm, and a large amount of Emperor's Qi and heavenly punishment Taoist patterns intertwined. Combined with the realm energy, it formed a giant golden hand in the air that grabbed at the overgods. That power was so shocking that it made everyone's eyes shrink. That power made the divine bodies that the two overgods were attached to tremble violently as they tried to use all their divine powers to resist it. However, the giant golden hand ignored all obstacles and grabbed the two overgods like they were little chicks. Then it clenched its fist. Amidst the screams, 2 clouds of blood mist exploded in the air. Everyone felt their scalps go numb. Even the emperors who were observing in the dark sucked in a cold breath. He raised his hand and killed 2 gods. What kind of power was this? Compared to the battle at the Nether Abyss Valley, his strength is much stronger. What's going on with this guy? Isn't he improving a little too quickly? In just a few years, he has become a celestial lord from the Emperor realm. Moreover, he can even annihilate 2 gods with a wave of his hand. My god, is he still human? Monster! On a distant mountain peak. When the goddess saw this scene, her heart was like dead ashes. At the side, Zhan Hongying sneered. Is this the so-called god you believe in? It doesn't look like much. Wait for the gods to undo the seal. Wait for the gods to undo the seal. The goddess kept murmuring. Her heart was also at a loss. The strength that Chu Kuangren had displayed was too terrifying, and the speed at which he improved was simply unbelievable. She even began to wonder if the deities would be able to suppress Chu Kuangren when the seal was lifted. However, it was useless for her to worry about that. Behind her, Zhan Hongying raised her blade and ended her life. At that point, Zhan Hongying's clan had been avenged. After killing the 2 gods, Chu Kuangren kept the mini-world and returned to the Black Heaven sect. Murong Xian, Nangong Huang, Lan Yu, and the others walked up to him and looked at him with awe and admiration in their eyes. Killing 2 gods with a wave of his hand was something that they did not even dare to imagine, yet Chu Kuangren had done it right in front of them. As expected of the sect leader. You're really something. After that, Chu Kuangren stayed in the Black Heaven sect for a few days. Now that Chu Kuangren was in charge of the Black Heaven sect, it had become the #1 orthodoxy in the firmament world. Whether it was in terms of resources or the number of experts, it was rare to see. Moreover, it was still developing. Coupled with the rapid development of the Black Heaven sect, it was not hard to imagine how terrifying Chu Kuangren would become in the near future. However, that was not what he was concerned about at the moment. He looked up into the sky with a profound gaze. He knew that no matter how much he developed in the firmament star, it was nothing compared to the great calamity that had lasted more than 10 years in the extraterrestrial battlefield. His real goal now should be the extraterrestrial battlefield. The myriad deity sects forces in the firmament star have basically collapsed, so the Black Heaven sect's development will no longer be hindered. As for the Black Heaven sect, with Lil Red, Lan Yu, and the others in charge, no one will dare to attack them. Moreover, there's also the 5 Dukes Divine Shadow Army. Perhaps I should make a trip to the extraterrestrial battlefield. Chu Kuangren murmured. He told Elder Ruyan and the others about his intention to go to the outer realm. He also summoned the immemorial sage of the Black Heaven cult, the leader of the White Lotus cult, and the others so that they could develop well in the firmament star. After that, Chu Kuangren left the 5 Dukes Divine Shadow Army in the firmament star. Before he left, he met up with the Heavenly Executioner. The Heavenly Executioner was not surprised that Chu Kuangren wanted to go to the extraterrestrial battlefield. With your current strength, unless the deities are unsealed, no one will be a match for you. Perhaps the extraterrestrial battlefield is the most suitable place for you to train, Qi Xing said emotionally. Then he took out a green spirit fruit. There were Taoist patterns intertwined on the surface of the fruit, and its fruity fragrance filled the air. Even Chu Kuangren felt a little envious when he smelled it. This is one of the 10 great spirit fruits, the world fruit. Qi Xing smiled and said, I've said before that as long as you can solve the myriad deity sects problem, I'll reward you handsomely. However, I didn't expect you to improve so quickly. Ordinary treasures are no longer of any use to you. I've thought about it, and I think this world fruit is the most suitable for you now. This fruit contains the power of the world. Since you've just stepped into the heavenly honorable realm not long ago, you can use this fruit to strengthen your small world. It's not impossible for you to improve even further. Take it. Qi Xing tossed the world fruit to Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren accepted the spirit fruit without hesitation. Then I shall thank the heavenly executioner. Also, if you're heading to the extraterrestrial battlefield, perhaps I can introduce you to someone. Qi Xing removed a jade pendant from his waist. Take this jade pendant and head to the extraterrestrial battlefield's 17th stronghold. I'm familiar with the general guarding there, so you can look for him there. All right. Chu Kuangren nodded and took the jade pendant. Leave the firmament star to us for the time being. The extraterrestrial battlefield is not like the firmament star. It's 100 times more dangerous there, and it's common for emperors to fall. Be careful. Understood. Qi Xing instructed Chu Kuangren on some things to take note of in the extraterrestrial battlefield. From his words, one could tell that he had high hopes for Chu Kuangren. After a short conversation, Chu Kuangren turned around and left. Looking at Chu Kuangren's departing figure, a glimmer of hope appeared in Qi Xing's eyes. Chu Kuangren, how far can you go in the end? He had a vague feeling in his heart. Whether it was the war between humans and celestials or the extraterrestrial battlefield, Chu Kuangren's appearance would bring unprecedented changes. He would become the key to everything. Chapter 700. To get to the extraterrestrial battlefield, one must first pass through the 9 heavens. The 9 heavens was located 90,000 kilometers above the firmament. For Chu Kuangren, who had become an emperor, it was no longer difficult for him to go to the 9 heavens. Like a stream of light, his figure flew straight up into the sky. It did not take long for him to arrive at the 90,000 kilometers above the firmament. There, he came into contact with an invisible barrier. That barrier was filled with surges of spatial energy. Without the cultivation level of an emperor, there was basically no way to break it. This must be the spatial barrier between the firmament and the 9 heavens. Chu Kuangren murmured. He raised his hand and grabbed at the spatial barrier, easily tearing a spatial crack on it. Then, his figure flashed and entered it. In an instant, he arrived at a whole new world. Although the Taoism of this world was the same as the firmament star's Taoism, there was a slight difference in the concentration of spiritual qi. Not only that, but the spatial structure was also very different. Obviously, this was the 9 heavens realm that the emperors had constructed. It was also one of the emperor's defensive lines against the blood tribe. Chu Kuangren looked up into the sky. His gaze pierced through the layers of clouds, and he could vaguely see golden light patterns circulating high up in the sky. The light patterns covered a very wide area, covering the entire sky. Is this the second line of defense, the morning heaven? The morning heaven was the highest heaven in the 9 heavens, and it was also the most mysterious place. At the same time, it was also a formation, the most mysterious formation that Chu Kuangren had ever seen in his life. Even though he could only see the tip of the iceberg from below, he still felt that this formation was far superior to the astonishing cloud of seas formation. Outside the morning heaven was the extraterrestrial battlefield that Chu Kuangren wanted to go to. It was located outside the morning heavens formation, in the vast universe. If he wanted to go there, he would have to go through the teleportation formation. In the 9 heavens, there was a teleportation formation that led to that place. I heard from the heavenly executioner that the teleportation formation is in the 9 heavens central city. Let's go there first. Chu Kuangren murmured. His figure flashed and instantly disappeared on the spot, arriving at the 9 heavens central city. The Nine Heavens Central City was the largest city in the Nine Heavens. It was also the place where countless strong cultivators from the ancient orthodoxies gathered. This place was also a base for traveling between outer space and the Nine Heavens. From time to time, one would see cultivators returning from outer space. The function of the teleportation formation in the central city was similar to Chu Kuangren's spatial conveyor technique. It was a formation that utilized spatial energy to travel between the outer realm and the Nine Heavens. However, unlike the spatial conveyor technique, this formation could only be used to travel between a fixed location. It was not as flexible as the spatial conveyor technique. The advantage was that the spatial energy that could be used was extremely powerful. Chu Kuangren's spatial conveyor technique could not penetrate the hateful parting heaven, but this teleportation formation could. In other words, each had its own advantages and disadvantages. You'll have to pay 10,000 liters of spiritual source each time you use the teleportation point to go to the outer realm, the cultivator guarding the teleportation point told Chu Kuangren. 10,000 kilograms of spirit source was already a very large amount of wealth. Even some small ancient orthodoxies might not be able to produce such a sum. Therefore, if it wasn't necessary, no matter if it was the outer realm or the Nine Heavens, they wouldn't easily spend such a large amount of resources to activate the teleportation formation. Of course, it was a different story for some especially rich almighty beings. Chu Kuangren belonged to the latter category. Without batting an eyelid, he took out 5,000 kilograms of spiritual source and handed it to the cultivator. Send me to the 17th stronghold. All right. Hold on, I want to go to the 17th stronghold too. At that moment, a burly man suddenly walked up. This burly man had a burly body, and his black hair casually draped over his shoulders. There was an extremely ferocious aura in his every movement. The cultivator guarding the teleportation point did not dare to be careless when he saw this person. He quickly said, "Greetings, Great Golden Emperor." "Yes, you're welcome. Great Golden Emperor, you've only broken through to the Emperor realm a few days ago, right? Are you in such a hurry to go to the outer realm battlefield?" The cultivator guarding the teleportation point asked in surprise. The Great Golden Emperor laughed and said, "I can't wait to go to the outer realm. Those blood tribe scums are still waiting for me to kill them. How can I continue to dawdle here?" Gold Mystic Great Monarch is truly bold. Previously, you could have taken a slot to the lower realm to guard the deity seal. That is a lucrative job. Who knows how many old monarchs are fighting for it? Yet you insist on going to the battlefield. Don't compare me to those emperors. They can only sit around and wait for death. I'm going to the outer realm to make a name for myself. The Great Golden Emperor laughed out loud with a heroic spirit. Beside him, Chu Kuangren glanced at him. He could tell that he had just stepped into the Emperor realm. He was only a first Emperor realm cultivator. Judging from the cultivator guarding the teleportation point, he must have become an emperor recently. He must be one of the emperors who had ascended in the recent years after the Heavenly Tao's revival. Such strength was indeed outstanding in the Nine Heavens and Firmament world. After all, emperors rarely appeared in those two places. In fact, many people even regarded them as top-tier existences. However, in the outer realm battlefield, it was not enough. To put it bluntly, emperors were revered in the Nine Heavens and Firmament world, but in the outer realm, they were just cannon fodder. It was difficult to stand out, let alone make a name for oneself. Of course, Chu Kuangren only thought about it in his heart. Since the Great Golden Emperor had such ambition, he could not discourage him. "Brother, I heard you say that you're going to the 17th fortress too, right?" The Great Golden Emperor looked at Chu Kuangren and asked. Chu Kuangren nodded. "Yes. What a coincidence. By the way, have you become an emperor?" "I've done it." The Great Golden Emperor looked at Chu Kuangren in surprise. "Not bad, brother. You look quite young, but I didn't expect you to become an emperor." Although it was difficult to tell a cultivator's age from their appearance, one could still tell from their aura, bones, and other aspects. The Great Golden Emperor guessed that Chu Kuangren was no more than 1,000 years old. It was not easy to become an emperor at such a young age. At least, one could tell that Chu Kuangren was a sky pride. The great Golden Emperor immediately wanted to make friends with him. The cultivator guarding the teleportation point was also very surprised. No wonder he could take out 10,000 kilograms of spiritual source without batting an eyelid. He's also an emperor. Please wait for a moment. I'll activate the teleportation point for both of you. The teleportation point guard brought the spiritual source to the side of the teleportation point and poured half of the spiritual source into the teleportation point. This was the reason why the teleportation point required so much spiritual source. Every time it was activated, the spiritual source would be used as an energy source. Naturally, this energy source could only be provided by the person who needed to use the teleportation point. All right, please enter the teleportation point. Chu Kuangren and the Great Golden Emperor walked into the teleportation point. The light patterns on the teleportation point glowed with a white light. The next moment, Chu Kuangren felt the scenery in front of him change, and he arrived in the middle of a colorful river of light. In the river of light, there were all kinds of scenery that were constantly changing. They were already in the teleportation point. Not long after, the river of light disappeared. Chu Kuangren and the Great Golden Emperor were still standing on the teleportation point, but the scenery around them had completely changed. Chapter 701. So this is fort number 17. Chu Kuangren looked at the bustling streets and taverns on both sides of the street. Everything here was no different from an ordinary city. Chu Kuangren quickly noticed something strange with his emperor's thought. That was because the fort in front of him was not built on the ground but was floating in outer space instead. The Great Golden Mystic Emperor noticed it too. He exchanged a glance with Chu Kuangren before the two of them flew into the sky. When the two of them reached a very high point, they soon encountered an invisible barrier in the sky. Once they passed through the barrier, the first thing they had to face was the extremely heterogeneous spiritual chi flow in the cosmos. The spiritual chi flow was very heterogeneous with all kinds of attributes. If an ordinary cultivator were to face such a spiritual chi flow, it would be a problem for them to survive, let alone absorb it. However, both of them were great emperors with emperor physiques, so the heterogeneous spiritual chi flow did not affect them at all. What they were concerned about was not that. They were currently in the cold and lonely cosmos, and below them was the majestic floating fort. The inside of the city looked no different from an ordinary city, but the outer perimeter was made of huge, pitch-black walls made of strange and incomparably tough iron. Countless runes were carved on the wall, and they could vaguely sense that there were strong cultivators guarding it. So this is fort number 17? How majestic. Look over there. Suddenly, the Great Golden Mystic Emperor looked into the distance and exclaimed. Chu Kuangren looked in that direction too. Looking behind the fort, the two of them saw a blue and white planet in the distance. That was the firmament star. The entire firmament star was shrouded in a faint golden light barrier with Taoist patterns intertwining on it, silently protecting this living planet. Chu Kuangren took a deep breath and activated his emperor's thought, expanding the range of his senses to its limit. He could sense that other than fort number 17, there were a few other similar-sized forts within 100 million kilometers. According to Chu Kuangren's understanding, the Great Ones of the Firmament Star had built a total of 81 forts in the outer realm. They were distributed in the skies above the Firmament Star, each guarding a domain. This is the outer domain. I feel like my blood is boiling. The Golden Mystic Great Sovereign was incomparably excited. Looking at the planet where he was born and thinking that he would be fighting for this planet, his heart was filled with infinite motivation. Let's head down first, Chu Kuangren said indifferently. In a flash, he returned to the teleportation formation of Fortress 17. Yo, newcomer. Beside the teleportation array, a cultivator looked at the two of them. Judging from their actions and expressions, he could tell that they had only just arrived in outer space. Yes. Great Sovereign Golden Mystic nodded. Newcomer, go to the barracks to register. You can only take your first step in this stronghold after getting your soldier's ID. Do your best. The cultivator kindly reminded him. Thank you. There's no need. Perhaps we'll have the chance to fight side by side in the future. Chu Kuangren and Rong Yuan strolled around Fort number 17 for a while. He noticed that not all the cultivators here were emperors. It could even be said that only a very small number of emperors were here. There were tens of millions of living beings and cultivators in this stronghold, but most of them were in the honorable and sage realms. There were not many emperors. These honorables and sages were mostly the descendants of the cultivators who were selected to come to this stronghold in ancient times. They had lived in this stronghold for generations, fighting for the sake of protecting the heavens. This is the barracks. Chu Kuangren and Great Sovereign Golden Mystic Great Sovereign came before a huge iron gate. On top of the iron gate, the word barracks was engraved. Why is this gate closed? Puzzled, Great Sovereign Golden Mystic stood up and shouted, "I'm Great Sovereign Golden Mystic. I'm here to register at the barracks. Please open the gate." "If you want to come in, sure. Open the gate yourself." A voice came from within the barracks. Chu Kuangren and Rong Yuan saw a few people on top of the wall. These people's auras were not ordinary. They were all emperors. They looked at Great Sovereign Golden Mystic with a playful look on their faces. "I wonder how strong this new emperor is. Let's see if he can open this gate." But look at the person next to him. His aura is a little strange. Yeah, I can't tell what his cultivation level is. But he doesn't look that old. I wonder if he's an emperor. I don't know if he's an emperor, but he's just too good-looking. He's more good-looking than anyone I've ever seen. One of the female emperors gulped and said. When the others heard that, they took a closer look at Chu Kuangren. They too felt that this person was too handsome, and they were secretly amazed. Meanwhile, Great Sovereign Golden Mystic looked at the iron gate. He knew that this was a test from the emperors in the barracks. He laughed and rubbed his palms together. "Do I have to pay if I break this gate?" The few emperors on top of the wall could not help but smile playfully. One of them, a tall and skinny emperor, said, "If you can break it, I'll pay for it." "All right." Great Sovereign Golden Mystic let out a low roar as the emperor's chi within his body surged out and turned into a golden fist. When the fist landed on the iron gate, the gate let out a loud bang and dust fell. Countless Taoist patterns intertwined on the surface of the gate, but it did not show any signs of opening. F***ck me, is this iron gate really that heavy? Great Sovereign Golden Mystic was speechless. His punch just now could even destroy 10 mountain ranges, but it couldn't do anything to this metal door. Again! Great Sovereign Golden Mystic activated the Emperor's chi within his body again. Golden Taoist patterns gradually appeared on the surface of his body, and a violent aura poured out like a tidal wave. Thousand Army Fist Scripture. Another punch was unleashed, and a large amount of Emperor's chi fused with Taoist patterns. It was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were charging towards the iron gate, causing a series of loud buzzing sounds. On top of the wall, a few emperors looked at Great Sovereign Golden Mystic, who was using all his strength, with a playful look in their eyes. This guy must have just stepped into the Emperor realm. He's only at the first level of the Emperor realm, but he has a good foundation with a top-tier Emperor essence and a flawless Tao. He has a lot of potential to grow. In time to come, he'll definitely be a great asset to our Fort 17th. Indeed, this is interesting. Below, Great Sovereign Golden Mystic panted as he looked at the iron gate that was intertwined with Taoist patterns. He could not help but exclaim, "This iron gate is just too sturdy. I can't believe my Emperor technique can't even scratch it. Why don't I give it a try?" At that moment, Chu Kuangren chuckled. "Go ahead and give it a try. I'm out of ideas anyway." Great Sovereign Golden Mystic felt a little defeated. He had initially planned to show off his skills in the extraterrestrial battlefield, but he was stopped by a gate the moment he arrived. That was quite a blow to him. "Yo, the other guy is going to attack. Oh, it seems like he's also an emperor." If Chu Kuangren still dared to attack after witnessing how sturdy the army gate was, it meant that he was at least an emperor. The few emperors on top of the wall looked at each other with interest. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren walked to the front of the iron gate and gently raised his hand. Emperor's chi gathered in his palm, and Taoist patterns appeared. Then he slowly pushed it out. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded. Chapter 702. Boom! With a deafening explosion, the iron gates of the military camp were instantly blasted apart. 2 loud bangs were heard as the gates were sent flying into the military camp. In an instant, the entire military camp was in an uproar. F***CK, what was that sound? What a powerful energy fluctuation. What's going on? Enemy attack! Enemy attack! No one knew who shouted that they were under attack. The soldiers in the military camp rushed out with their weapons in their hands and glared at Chu Kuangren and the Golden Mystic Emperor. Amongst them, there were even dozens of emperors. The Golden Mystic Emperor could not help but gulp when he was stared at by these people. His body trembled as he felt an unprecedented pressure. In front of him, Chu Kuangren was calm. However, there was a hint of annoyance on his face. That was a little too much. I was already holding back. The Golden Mystic Emperor's eyes trembled violently when he heard that. F***CK me. What kind of being had he been traveling with all this while? On top of the wall, the emperors who initially had a playful look on their faces were dumbfounded. They stared at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. Where did this ferocious person come from? What are you waiting for? Hurry up and stop the commanders. At that moment, a female emperor shouted. The others immediately regained their senses and went down the wall to the middle of the crowd to stop the conflict. It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Everyone, calm down, commanders. This is just a misunderstanding. They're new emperors here to register. We just wanted to test them, so we let them open the gates themselves. The tall and skinny emperor quickly explained. The leader of this group of people was a burly man with a full beard. He glared at the tall and skinny emperor. You guys have been messing around the whole day. Now that you've broken the gates, who do you think is going to be responsible for this? The tall and skinny emperor laughed awkwardly before he said to Chu Kuangren sternly, I'm talking to you. What the hell are you doing? Who told you to break the gates? Since you're new here, don't do it again. Understand? Chu Kuangren glanced at him and said, You are the one who said that you'll pay for it if you break it. The skinny and tall emperor's face stiffened. F***CK, isn't he undermining me too quickly? Don't you know how to cooperate? The commander's expression became even more hostile. He stared at the thin and tall emperor and said flatly, The cost of repairing the gate will be deducted from your salary. If this happens again, you can forget about receiving your salary forever. I know. The thin and tall emperor wanted to cry. And you guys, yes. The other participating emperors hurriedly straightened their backs and stood ramrod straight. Take the 2 of them to register. Yes. That female emperor walked up to Chu Kuangren enthusiastically. Little brother, my name is Flying Snow. What's your name? Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. When the commander, who was about to leave, heard Chu Kuangren's name, he stopped in his tracks and turned around to stare at him. Not only him, but a few emperors in the crowd were also staring at Chu Kuangren thoughtfully. He's Chu Kuangren? The little guy who stopped the demonic realm's invasion. I can't believe he's already an emperor. That's not all. I heard from the other emperors that this little guy has caused quite a ruckus in the Firmament Star and offended quite a few orthodoxies. The Myriad Deity sect even suffered a huge loss at his hands. I've long heard of his name. I finally get to meet him in person. Heh, I can't believe the famous Chu Kuangren has come to our fort number 17. He must be the one who blew up the gate. With such strength, he doesn't look like a newly ascended emperor at all. It looks like our fort number 17 is going to be lively soon. Some of the emperors discussed among themselves. Beside them, the Golden Mystic Emperor was dumbfounded. At first, he thought that Chu Kuangren was a newcomer like himself, but now it seemed like Chu Kuangren had a powerful background. With a gentle palm strike, he blew up the army camp's gate. Even after announcing his name, he still attracted so many people's attention. I've long heard from some of my sisters about how good-looking Chu Kuangren is. I've even secretly used my emperor's thought to peek at you. Now it seems that you really live up to your reputation. the Golden Mystic Emperor said in amazement. Chu Kuangren, on the other hand, could not help but shudder when he heard that. He had been peeked at by a group of empresses in the past? Then when he bathed, when he slept, this group of perverts. The corner of Chu Kuangren's mouth twitched. Let's go. Let me bring you to register. The Golden Mystic Emperor chuckled. Who is he? The Golden Mystic Emperor could not help but murmur as he stared at Chu Kuangren's back. The tall and skinny man patted him on the shoulder and asked curiously, "Didn't you come with him? Don't you know him?" Before I became an emperor, I've always been in closed-door meditation. It was only a few years ago when the heavenly Tao was restored that I came out and became an emperor. I don't know much about the things that happened in the past, the Golden Mystic Emperor said. This guy is quite famous among the emperors. The tall and skinny man stroked his chin in amazement. Let's go. I'll bring you to register. We'll talk on the way. All right. At the army camp's registration office. Everyone who came to the fortress had to register their identity. Other than the elusive Taoist masters, no one was an exception. The registration process was rather smooth. All they had to do was take a drop of blood and receive a token. After that, they would be registered as a soldier. As for the drop of blood, it was used using some kind of secret technique. Once a soldier died on the battlefield, the fortress would receive the news. This was beneficial to the management of the fortress and the deployment of combat strength. From now on, I'll be in your care. The Golden Mystic Emperor smiled at Chu Kuangren. You're too kind, Brother Chu. By the way, Brother Chu, this is your first time here. Do you have a place to stay in the fortress? The Golden Mystic Emperor asked. Why, does this place not provide food and accommodation? The soldiers in the fortress are divided into 3 types. One is the official soldiers, the second is the private soldiers, and the last is the scattered soldiers. The Golden Mystic Emperor explained the distribution of the soldiers in the fortress to Chu Kuangren. The official soldiers were the soldiers of the general's residence. This type of soldier was the strongest, and the general's residence was also the management center of the entire fortress. It governed all the soldiers in the fortress, and in times of need, it could even mobilize all the soldiers in the fortress. It was an extremely powerful force. The private soldiers were the soldiers that were attached to the major forces. For example, the orthodoxies that had lived in the fortress for countless years would more or less have some private soldiers. The scattered soldiers, on the other hand, were those who were unwilling to be attached to the general's residence or other orthodoxies. Most of them were alone or formed small groups to fight outside. If you want food and accommodation, that's easy. All you have to do is register as an official soldier. The Golden Mystic Emperor laughed. Chu Kuangren pondered for a while before he said, "Let me think about it." Do you have some orthodoxy here? Not really. Chu Kuangren shook his head and laughed. At that moment, the Golden Mystic Emperor and the Skinny Emperor walked into the registration office. The Golden Mystic Emperor looked at Chu Kuangren in shock. He had already learned some things about Chu Kuangren from the Skinny Emperor, so he could not calm down for a long time. He felt that compared to Chu Kuangren, he was just a piece of trash. Chapter 703. After the registration, Chu Kuangren left the military camp. As for the Golden Mystic Great Emperor, he was registered as a prefecture soldier. With his strength as a great emperor, he would be very popular no matter where he went in the stronghold. In any orthodoxy, he would at least be a deputy commander. However, he still chose to be a soldier in the general's residence, planning to slowly accumulate battle merits. Chu Kuangren did not ask much about it. Both of them arrived at the fortress at the same time and parted ways without saying anything. After leaving the military camp, Chu Kuangren walked on the streets. He suddenly took out a jade pendant and murmured, "I almost forgot about the jade pendant Qi Xing gave me. Perhaps I'll get something good out of it." This jade pendant was given to him by Qi Xing. He said that he was familiar with the general of the 17th fortress, so if he needed help, he could use this jade pendant to seek help. Chu Kuangren did not need any help, but it was not impossible for him to pay a visit. At that thought, he went to the general's residence. The general's residence was located in the center of the fortress, not far from the military camp. There were many soldiers guarding it, and each of them was the best of the best. Upon seeing that Chu Kuangren had arrived, many pairs of eyes immediately fell on him and scanned him from head to toe. Chu Kuangren answered honestly, "My name is Chu Kuangren. I'm here to pay a visit to the general. May I trouble you to inform him of my arrival? Do you have an invitation?" "No, but I have a jade pendant here. You'll understand when you see it." Chu Kuangren took out the jade pendant and said. The soldier hesitated when he saw the jade pendant, but he still took it and said, "Please wait here." "All right." The soldier took the jade pendant and entered the general's residence. When he arrived at the main hall and was about to enter to report, he was stopped by two other soldiers. One of them said, "The general is currently discussing important matters with a few commanders. No one else is allowed to enter without permission." When the soldier heard this, he waited at the side. Inside the general's residence's main hall, a middle-aged man in a black robe with his hair tied up was discussing with a few commanders about defending against the Blood Tribe. This person was the general of the 17th Fortress, also known as the Ghostly Blade Heavenly Honorable. The Chaos spiritual origin on the 7th asteroid is about to form, and the Blood Tribe seems to be on the move. Yes, we'll send someone to investigate. Recently, a small unit of the Blood race attempted to cross the fortress, but they were intercepted and killed by us. They've been making frequent movements recently. Indeed, continue to strengthen the security. Inside the hall, Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade discussed with the commanders for over an hour. Finally, when the commanders gradually left, the prefecture soldier who had been waiting outside walked in. "General, there's someone outside who claims to be Chu Kuangren. He said that he's here to pay you a visit and that you'll understand once you see this item." The soldier took out the jade pendant and said. Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade's pupils shrank the moment he saw the jade pendant. "How long has that person been waiting outside?" "General, it's been about 2 hours." "What? Damn it, why didn't you bring it in earlier?" "But General, you're in the middle of a meeting with a few commanders. I don't dare to disturb you." The soldier wanted to cry, but had no tears. Hearing this, General Ghost Blade calmed down. He quickly got up and walked out of the general's mansion with a nervous expression. When the commanders who had yet to leave saw this scene, they could not help but look at each other in shock. Who is it that the general is so cautious about? Did he just say, Chu Kuangren? The Chu Kuangren who caused such a commotion in the firmament star that everyone knows about? That can't be right. Even if it's that person, there's no need for the general to be so cautious. Could there be some other reason? Is it that jade pendant? The few chieftains were very curious, so they deliberately slowed down their footsteps as they wanted to meet the rumored Chu Kuangren. Outside the general's mansion, Chu Kuangren had been waiting outside for more than 2 hours. He frowned slightly, feeling a little impatient. Could it be that the general doesn't want to see me? If he doesn't want to see me, then so be it. He should at least return the jade pendant to me, Chu Kuangren muttered. At that moment, Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade quickly walked out of the general's mansion and said, "Brother Chu, I'm really sorry. I was in the middle of a meeting with a few commanders, so I'm sorry for the delay." He spoke sincerely with an apologetic look on his face. Chu Kuangren did not want to lose his temper, so he calmed down and nodded slightly. "It's all right. If the general has other matters to attend to, I'll visit another day. I'll take my leave now. Please wait a moment, Brother Chu. Nothing is more important than you right now. Come, please come in," Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade quickly said. The soldiers at the side were all dumbfounded. Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade. Just by hearing that name, one could tell that he was not a good person. In fact, as a general who guarded an area, Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade was extremely strict with his troops. He was usually serious and unapproachable. Yet now, he was so friendly towards a young man? The soldiers were all stunned by what they saw. Was this still the general they were familiar with? "Then I shall accept your invitation." Chu Kuangren pondered for a while before he followed him into the general's mansion. At the same time, he saw the few commanders of Fort Number 17. The bearded man that he met in the military camp was also among them. Brother Chu, we meet again. The burly man laughed heartily. Yes. Chu Kuangren nodded politely. Then, Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade introduced the commanders of Fort Number 17 to him. Chu Kuangren glanced at them and the spirit of omniscience began to analyze them. Holy T. They were all Heavenly Venerates. Brother Chu, where did you get this jade pendant from? Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade took out the jade pendant and asked cautiously. Elder Qi Xing gave it to me. He really is our benefactor. Where is our benefactor now? Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade sighed before he asked. He's currently on Firmament Star, guarding the deity seal. I've long heard that the deities are getting restless. If it weren't for the Blood Tribe, I would have returned to Firmament Star to fight alongside our benefactor and annihilate them all. Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade snorted. Then, his expression changed. If I remember correctly, our benefactor was severely injured during the battle against the deities. Although many years have passed, his injuries are still terrifying. How is he now? Based on Firmament Star's current situation, he should be able to handle it. Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade knew about Qi Xing's injuries. That was an injury left behind by a deity. Even Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade could not heal it. However, with Qi Xing's cultivation level, he could suppress it and heal it on his own. Although the process was very slow. Then, Chu Kuangren continued to chat with Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade. From their conversation, he learned that Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade had also participated in the battle against the deities. However, he was not even an emperor back then. He was just a small soldier. He even almost died during a battle against the deities. It was all thanks to Qi Xing that he was able to survive until now. That was why he remembered it until now. As for the jade pendant, it was always with Qi Xing, and it was tainted with his energy. That was why he knew that Chu Kuangren was related to Qi Xing when he saw the jade pendant. Otherwise, Heavenly Venerate Ghost Blade would not have treated him so warmly. Chapter 704. Brother Chu, this is your first time here, so I'm sure you must be unfamiliar with this fortress. How about this? Why don't you join my general's residence? I can grant you the position of a commander. What do you think? The Ghost Blade Heavenly Honorable said generously. The bearded man's expression did not change much, but the other captains beside him could not help but be shocked. General, please reconsider. That's right. We're not doubting Brother Chu's ability, but Brother Chu is a newcomer without any battle merits. I'm afraid it would be difficult to convince the others to accept the position of a commander. That's right. The few captains objected to the Ghost Blade Heavenly Honorable's decision. However, the Ghost Blade Heavenly Honorable's gaze turned cold. What? Am I not even qualified to be a commander? No, but General, enough. Brother Chu, you can do it if I say so. The Ghost Blade Heavenly Honorable looked at Chu Kuangren with a gentle expression. Brother Chu, are you willing to accept this position? Chu Kuangren pondered for a while before he shook his head and chuckled. I'm not interested in the position. Besides, I've already decided to act as a lone soldier from now on. It's more comfortable for me to move around alone. Lone soldiers were the weakest group in the extraterrestrial battlefield. However, to Chu Kuangren, being a lone soldier had great advantages. First, he was unfettered and would not be bound by any rules. Second, he could move around as a lone soldier, which would increase his mobility and allow him to gain more experience on the battlefield. Moreover, he could enjoy any rewards that he gained. This was a decision he made based on his confidence in his strength. Brother Chu, if you insist on this, then I'll have to respect your decision. Seeing that Chu Kuangren had rejected his offer, the Ghost Blade Heavenly Honorable, who was initially so confident, no longer persisted. Chu Kuangren secretly curled his lips at that. You were acting like you must make me a commander just now. Now you're giving up just like that. You should keep insisting if you have the guts. Chu Kuangren knew that the Ghost Blade Heavenly Honorable did not really want him to take over the position of commander. He was just testing him. I've seen this kind of trick too many times. However, he did not plan to agree to it anyway. Brother Chu, although you don't want to take over the commander's position, you've just arrived. You should let me play the role of a host. Why don't you stay here? You can't refuse, Ghost Blade Heavenly Lord said. Thank you for your hospitality. Chu Kuangren agreed right away. He was too lazy to find another place to stay if he could get a free ride. Besides, what place in this fortress could be safer than the general's residence? Men, bring fellow Taoist Chu to rest. Then I'll take my leave first. Chu Kuangren left. In the lobby. Seeing that Chu Kuangren did not take over the position of commander, the few commanders could not help but let out a sigh of relief. It was not that they had anything against Chu Kuangren, but the fact that a newcomer had suddenly become a commander out of nowhere would inevitably cause dissatisfaction among the subordinates. If things got out of hand, it would not be easy to clean up the mess. Commander, what do you think we should do if Chu Kuangren really takes over the commander's position? The bearded man asked. Let him be the commander then. As long as he can control the soldiers under him, it'll be fine. If he can't, I can easily take them back, the Ghost Blade Heavenly Honorable said calmly as if he had everything under control. Inside a room in the general's residence, Chu Kuangren was cultivating. The spiritual qi in this fortress was not much different from the 9 heavens and the firmament world. After all, be it the 9 heavens or the firmament world, the spiritual qi in these two places originated from the boundless universe. Chu Kuangren suddenly took out a green fruit. It was the world fruit that 7th Torture had given him. Including this world fruit, I've already tasted 3 of the 10 great spirit fruits, Chu Kuangren said with a smile. Not many people in this world were as lucky as him. Out of the 10 great spirit fruits, it was already a great fortune for a person to obtain even one. It was not like him who could continuously consume them. Gulp gulp, Chu Kuangren quickly swallowed the world fruit into his stomach. He clicked his tongue twice and then licked the juice off the corner of his mouth. It tastes like a green apple. Sour. Then, a mysterious energy erupted from within his body. The universal cauldron physique was activated. Soon, the world fruit's energy was completely refined by him. Each of the 10 great spirit fruits had their own functions. The divine white spirit fruit focused on epiphanies, the divine parasol fruit was good at increasing one's cultivation, and the world fruit contained realm energy. After refining the realm energy, Chu Kuangren's understanding of the divine honorable small realm had deepened, and it had become much more stable. Every time he used the 10 great spirit fruits, it would be of great help to him. That made him look forward to the other spirit fruits even more. However, he also knew that these spirit fruits were hard to come by. It was already a great fortune for him to obtain 3 of them in a row. However, he still had to hold on to some hope. After all, no one could say for sure about things like opportunities of fortune. On this day, Chu Kuangren was using his emperor's thought to observe the entire fortress. He was gathering some information. With his telekinesis talent, his emperor's thought could see and hear, so he could know everything that was happening in the outside world without stepping out of his house. During this process, his emperor's thought would occasionally interact with other emperor's thought. After all, he was not the only emperor in this fortress. Hence, it was not a big deal for them to greet each other. It was just like how they would greet each other on the streets. Suddenly, he could sense a few emperor's thoughts converging in the air. They did not separate as if they were communicating with each other. If they were unfamiliar emperor's thoughts, Chu Kuangren would not have bothered with them. It would be as awkward as having a stranger ask them what they were talking about when he was chatting with a few friends. However, among these emperor's thoughts, there were 2 that he was familiar with. They were Emperor Flying Snow and Golden Mystic Emperor. Should he go up to them? Brother Chu, how are you? Just when Chu Kuangren was hesitating, Emperor Flying Snow's emperor's thought took the initiative to touch him and greet him. Brother Flying Snow, how are you? We were just talking about something that might have something to do with you. Do you want to hear it? Oh, I'm all ears, Chu Kuangren said. Huh, it's not a big deal. It's just that the general's young general is about to return, and we're trying to think of a way to deal with him. The general's young general? Is he the Ghost Blade Heavenly Honorable son? Nope, it's a girl. She's not the general's daughter either. I don't even know which generation she's from, but she's his most beloved descendant. Sigh, Brother Chu, you don't know this, But this young general of the general's residence is really something. He became a sage at the age of 30 and an emperor at the age of 40. Now, he's already a perfected emperor at the age of 50. This talent of his is definitely one of the best in the history of Firmament Star. That impressive? Chu Kuangren was shocked. He was a heavenly honorable before he turned 30. However, that did not stop him from being shocked by his talent. A 50-year-old full emperor was definitely rare in the history of Firmament Star. That's right. It's precisely because she's so impressive that this young general has always thought highly of herself. Not only that, but she also has high expectations for others, especially her grandfather's soldiers. Every time she returns, she'll test us. If we don't meet her standards, we'll suffer. The emperors were a little troubled. That made Chu Kuangren more interested in this general's young general whom he had never met before. Chapter 705. Fort number 17, in the general's office. Chu Kuangren was communicating with the crowd using his emperor's thought, and he learned a lot about the upcoming young general. The youngest emperor in the history of the fort, the extremely rare ultimate emperor cultivator, and the fastest cultivator to enter the combat leaderboard. All in all, this young general of the general's office was very famous in the fort, and countless cultivators respected him. At that moment, Chu Kuangren sensed two auras approaching him. He cut off his emperor's thought and got up to open the door. Outside the door, there were two women in red standard robes with black sabers hanging from their waists. They looked valiant and formidable. "Brother Chu, the young general has invited you to the main hall." The two women's eyes lit up when they saw Chu Kuangren. But soon, the two of them recovered and said with a serious expression. Chu Kuangren nodded. "Let's go." That young general had returned. Coincidentally, Chu Kuangren wanted to see how powerful that person was. In the general's office, in the main hall, the ghost blade Heavenly Honorable was talking to a woman in red. The woman's facial features were exquisite, and she was as beautiful as a peach. Although she was charming, there was a hint of ferocious intent between her brows, like a rose with thorns. She was the young general of the general's office, Honghua Yen. "Huar, when you meet Brother Chu later, you must behave yourself. Don't do anything stupid, all right?" The ghost blade Heavenly Honorable reminded her. "Yes, don't worry, grandfather. I know what I'm doing," Honghua Yen said calmly. The ghost blade Heavenly Honorable became even more uncertain when he heard that. Not long after, Chu Kuangren was led to the main hall by the two female guards. "Greetings, General, young general." Chu Kuangren greeted them with a fist salute, looking gentle and refined. Beside him, Yen Honghua glanced at him. Even though she had been through hundreds of battles and her heart had long been tempered into a diamond, she still trembled slightly when she saw Chu Kuangren. He really is good-looking. Not only Honghua, but the female guards behind her also whispered to each other, their eyes fixed on Chu Kuangren. This man is just too good-looking. Yeah, look at his body and face. If he wasn't the general's guest, I would have snatched him back. Tisk, I really want to bully him. Ahem. The ghost blade Heavenly Honorable coughed twice. Only then did the female guards restrain themselves. Beside him, Yen Honghua could not help but berate, "How shameful." Then, she looked at Chu Kuangren and said, "I've heard some things about you, and I'm very curious about you. That's why I brought you here. Now that I've met you today, I can see that you're indeed extraordinary, Brother Chu." "Young general, you're too polite." Chu Kuangren also glanced at Yin Honghua. With just a glance, he had completely analyzed the other party's information. His strength was about the same as the rumors said. In fact, he was even more outstanding. Not only was he a perfect emperor, but he was also in the 9th stage of the emperor realm, not far from the Heavenly Master realm. The two chatted casually for a while. "I'll be making a trip to the barracks later. Is fellow Taoist Chu interested in coming with me?" Yen Honghua suddenly asked. "Sure." Chu Kuangren did not reject it. The few of them headed to the barracks. In the barracks, all the soldiers had already heard the news of Yen Honghua's return, and all of them began to double their training. "The young general is here." Suddenly, The thin and tall emperor who had been watching from the top of the wall shouted. "Line up!" The bearded commander yelled. Not long after, Yan Honghua, Chu Kuangren, and a few others walked into the barracks. All the soldiers gathered together and stood straight. "Liu Dao, step forward." Yan Honghua called out. The thin and tall man's face turned bitter when he heard that, but he still walked out with his chest puffed out and shouted, "Yes." "Attack me," Yan Honghua said. The thin and tall man was not surprised. He raised his hand and attacked Yan Honghua. The emperor's qi gathered in his palm, and mysterious Taoist patterns appeared. When he blasted out his palm, it set off surging shockwaves that stacked one after another. However, Yan Honghua raised her hand and unleashed a punch. Amidst the explosion, the emperor's qi, Taoist patterns, and endless shockwaves were shattered. The thin and tall man was blasted hundreds of meters away and smashed into the main gate. Another move. It was the same the last time, and it's still the same this time. "Liu Dao, have you been working hard in your cultivation?" "Yes," the thin and tall man shouted as he got up from the ground. Double your training," Yan Honghua snorted. "Flying Snow, step forward." "Yes." Emperor Flying Snow walked out, feeling a little nervous. Following that, Yan Honghua once again punched out. Great Emperor Flying Snow used all his strength to defend against it, barely managing to defend against this fist. "Flying Snow, my red-robed guards are still lacking a deputy commander. If you're willing, you're always welcome," Yan Honghua said. "Thank you, young general. I'll consider it." Emperor Flying Snow had been in the barracks for a long time, and she had gotten to know many people here. She was still a little reluctant to leave. Yan Honghua tested another dozen or so people. They were all emperor-level figures. Then she said, "I'm a little tired." The rest of the people who were not tested breathed a sigh of relief. "That's great." Yan Honghua looked at Chu Kuangren, who had been watching behind her, and said, "Brother Chu, please help me test the rest." Chu Kuangren was stunned. He was wondering why she would drag him to the barracks for no reason at all. It turned out that she was waiting for him. "She's testing me. But I don't think that's a good idea." Chu Kuangren was a little hesitant. "There's nothing bad about it. These guys have been lazing around for a few days without training. Feel free to test them, and I'll let you know how strong the soldiers of Fort 17 are," Yan Honghua said. "Evil Wind, step forward. Let's exchange a few moves with Brother Chu." That cultivator, Nefarious Wind, walked out and looked at Chu Kuangren with a hint of eagerness in his eyes. "Brother Chu, please." "Brother Chu, you must be careful. Not only is Evil Wind a captain of the barracks, but he's also an expert on the combat leaderboard. Although his ranking isn't high, he's not to be underestimated." Great Emperor Flying Snow reminded by the side. The combat leaderboard was a leaderboard of the extraterrestrial battlefield. This leaderboard did not refer to one's combat strength, but to one's battle merits. The higher one's battle merits, the higher one's ranking. However, the higher one's battle merits, the higher their combat strength would be. None of those ranked on the combat leaderboard were simple characters. "Please," Chu Kuangren said. Evil Wind made his move. Just like his name suggested, the moment he made his move, gusts of black windstorms surrounded him and swept towards Chu Kuangren. His opponent's strength was already at the 7th level of the Emperor realm. That was the strength of a complete emperor. Chu Kuangren focused his sword fingers, and a sword qi circled around his fingertips, easily tearing apart the black windstorms around Evil Wind. The sword qi swirled and stopped at Evil Wind's throat. He gulped, and the Emperor's qi and aura on his body instantly dissipated. He looked at Chu Kuangren in horror. He had clearly seen the other party's movements with his sword just now. He raised his hand and stabbed out in one smooth motion. The trajectory of the sword technique was even clearer. However, he could not dodge it. This was no longer a difference in techniques. It was a difference in cultivation realms. In the barracks, the soldiers who witnessed this scene could not help but narrow their eyes as they looked at Chu Kuangren solemnly. With just one move, Chu Kuangren had shocked everyone. Chapter 706. I've lost. Wicked Wind gulped as a thin layer of cold sweat formed on his forehead. He knew very well. As long as Chu Kuangren willed it, he could end Wicked Wind's life with just a flick of his finger, and Wicked Wind would not be able to retaliate at all. No way, no way. Wicked Wind is a strong cultivator on the combat leaderboard. How could he be defeated in just one move? Is this for real? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? What was that sword attack just now? What cultivation realm is this guy in? The soldiers in the barracks exclaimed. Even Yan Honghua and the few female guards behind her were surprised. I didn't expect this young man to be so powerful. Wicked Wind is a complete emperor after all. I'm afraid not even the young general can defeat him in one move. As soon as one of the female guards finished speaking, she suddenly remembered that Yan Honghua was beside her. She quickly covered her mouth. This guy's strength is indeed extraordinary, Yan Honghua said with a hint of eagerness in her eyes. She remembered that the Ghost Blade Heavenly Honorable once said that Chu Kuangren was younger than her, but his achievements were not any lower than hers. Yan Honghua had always been one of the most outstanding cultivators among her peers. A 50-year-old complete emperor was too rare. In the 81 strongholds, there were not many people of the same generation who could be mentioned in the same breath as her. Even if one searched throughout the ages, it was extremely rare to find a cultivator with a talent like her. Hence, Yan Honghua had always been proud of herself. When she heard that someone else's achievements were not any lower than hers, but he was younger, she could not help but want to compare herself. She wanted to see who was more outstanding between her and Chu Kuangren. Zhang Yi, step forward. Another emperor was called out by Yan Honghua. However, he was still defeated by Chu Kuangren in one move. This time, the crowd was in an uproar. Yan Honghua didn't need to call them. Those Emperor Realm Cultivation lieutenants and captains stepped out on their own. Allow me to test your skills. Please. After one move, that emperor was defeated. Allow me. It's my turn now. I don't believe it. As the emperors were defeated by Chu Kuangren one after another, and they were all defeated in just one move, the crowd's discussions grew louder. All right, all of you stop. Just then, Yan Honghua stopped the crowd. She walked towards Chu Kuangren and said, Brother Chu, thank you for your hard work. It's fine. Now it's my turn to test it. Young general, please. Not them but you. Yan Honghua stared at Chu Kuangren with a fiery gaze filled with battle intent. I'd like to test Brother Chu's abilities for myself. She took out a fiery red spear. There were mysterious Dao patterns circulating on the spear, and it was dazzling and resplendent. It exuded an extremely overbearing aura. Fellow Taoist Chu, make your move. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren sighed in his heart. I knew it. Then I'll be in your care. The descendant self-sword on Chu Kuangren's waist automatically unsheathed itself and landed in his palm. He was calculating how many moves he should use to defeat Yan Honghua. One move? Wouldn't this be too embarrassing for the other party? After all, he was currently staying in the general's mansion. It wouldn't be good to defeat him in one move in front of so many people. 3 moves? That didn't seem right. Should I let her have a few moves first? While Chu Kuangren was calculating how to defeat Yan Honghua, she had already raised her spear and thrust it towards him. That thrust was filled with majestic Emperor Qi and Taoist patterns. It was as if thousands of soldiers and horses were charging towards him. Very few people in the initial Emperor realm could withstand it. Chu Kuangren raised his sword effortlessly. The sword and spear collided, and with a loud clang, the void instantly exploded. His sword did not move an inch, and he was as steady as a mountain. Chu Kuangren easily blocked that attack, which made Yan Honghua's eyes narrow. There are too many people here. Let's fight in the void. Then, both of them entered the void. In the void, the sword and the spear clashed, and the Emperor Qi and Taoist patterns exploded one after another. Terrifying energy swept across thousands of kilometers in the void. All the experts in the fort noticed it. Many emperor thoughts entered the void and observed the battle. Some of the emperors could only see that both of them were fighting intensely and were evenly matched. The heavenly honorables, on the other hand, could see that something was amiss. The gap is too big. In the military camp, the bearded commander shook his head and said, he was a heavenly honorable. He could see that the gap between Chu Kuangren and Yan Honghua was too big. They were not even on the same level at all. Both of them seemed to be fighting fiercely, but Chu Kuangren did not go all out because he was concerned about his opponent's reputation. The amount of water he spilled was almost enough to form an ocean. That should be enough. In the void, Chu Kuangren thought to himself. He and Yan Honghua had already exchanged more than 30 moves. He did not even need to use so many moves when he fought the deities, so he figured that he had already given his opponent enough face. Hence, he got a little more serious. He swung his long sword, and a sword ray slashed across the void, tearing apart the sky full of spear shadows, crushing the Emperor Qi, and repelling Yan Honghua. Then, the descendant self-sword followed like a shadow and landed on her opponent's slender white neck. The outcome of the battle was clear. Chu Kuangren kept the descendant self-sword. Thank you, young general. Yan Honghua's expression was extremely gloomy. She glared at Chu Kuangren and gritted her teeth. Do you think I'm an idiot? She snorted and walked out of the void. Back at the military camp. Young general. A few captains came up to her and were about to console her. However, before they could say anything, they saw the ugly expression on her face. Let's go. Without another word, she left with a few guards. Chu Kuangren walked out of the void as well. Brother Chu, you've been hiding your true strength. My goodness, even the young general is no match for you. But she seems to be throwing a tantrum now. She's a girl after all. A little coaxing will do, not to mention a handsome man like you. The bearded captain patted Chu Kuangren's shoulder with a meaningful smile. Chu Kuangren looked at Yan Honghua's back helplessly. It seemed like he had gone too far. Haven't I given in enough? Brother Chu, be honest with me. Are you already in the heavenly honorable realm? The bearded captain looked at Chu Kuangren and said solemnly. Chu Kuangren nodded without hiding anything. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard his words. How old is he? He's already in heavenly honorable? At first, I thought that the young general was already an unprecedented genius. I can't believe there's someone even more insane. Although the bearded captain had already guessed it, he could not help but be shocked when he heard Chu Kuangren admit it himself. He then laughed. Very well. Now, our fort number 17 has another heavenly honorable. Heavenly honorables were the backbone of the front line. Every additional heavenly honorable was a great help to a fort. Inside the general's residence, Yan Honghua's expression was terrible. D****. Does this guy really think I'm an idiot? Can't I see that he's giving in to me? Since when did I, Yan Honghua, need someone to give in to me? Yan Honghua was very proud. It was because of this pride that she was very angry with Chu Kuangren. She felt that he was looking down on her. Fighting is a matter of giving your all. I, Yan Honghua, would rather lose completely than accept this kind of courtesy. Yan Honghua gritted her teeth and said. Chapter 707. When Chu Kuangren returned to the general's residence, he did not see Yan Honghua. However, he did see her two guards. The two guards were a pair of sisters. One was called Bai Chongxue, and the other was Bai Chongquan. They grew up with Yan Honghua. Now, they were Yan Honghua's right-hand woman. The young general is very angry now. I advise you not to appear in front of her for the next few days, Bai Chongquan said. This is the first time I've seen the young general this angry. Logically speaking, she shouldn't be like this even if she lost the battle. Little brother, what did you do to the young general? Bai Chongxue asked curiously. Chu Kuangren shook his head helplessly, unwilling to say more. He thought about it on his way back. He already had some guesses as to why Yan Honghua was angry. It seemed that he had gone easy on her, which made her feel humiliated. He did not expect her to be so serious about the battle. Since Yan Honghua was still angry, Chu Kuangren did not want to disturb her. If she was angry, then so be it. What else could she do? He still ate and drank as he liked. However, since he was now living in the general's residence, it was inevitable that they would bump into each other occasionally. Chu Kuangren did not mind Yan Honghua's indifferent attitude towards him as long as she did not interfere with his work. On this day, Yan Honghua, dressed in a bright red armor, went to the Ghost Blade Heavenly Venerable. Seeing her like that, the Ghost Blade Heavenly Venerable knew what she was going to do. "Where are you going this time?" Ever since Yan Honghua became an emperor, she had formed her own red-robed guards and went out to battle every few days. It could be said that Yan Honghua had made rapid progress in just a few years. From when she first stepped into the Emperor realm to the current 9th-level Emperor realm, aside from her own talent, her hard work was also inseparable. "I'm going to the 7th asteroid belt," Yan Honghua said. The Ghost Blade Heavenly Venerable frowned. The 7th asteroid belt has been fighting fiercely recently, and there are even Heavenly Venerable Realm cultivators around. You may be strong, but it's still too dangerous. I heard that the 7th asteroid has a chaos spiritual source, which is very useful for me to improve my strength. I want to try my luck there. You broke through from the Emperor Origin realm to the 9th layer in just a few years. Since ancient times, how many people can do this? Even if you don't use the chaos spirit source, you can still break through to the Heavenly Venerable realm in a few years. Fortress 17 will also be under your control in the future, so there's no need for you to take risks. Empyrean Ghost Blade said earnestly. Since there are treasures that can help me break through to the Heavenly Venerate stage quickly, why should I spend time slowly polishing myself? You're too impatient. I know that you wholeheartedly want to avenge Yuan and the others. However, if you were to go on an expedition every single time and narrowly escape death in order to search for opportunities to break through, what if something were to happen? I'll be fine. Before Empyrean Ghost Blade could finish speaking, Yan Honghua interrupted him. I will not die before avenging my father and mother. Grandfather, the heavenly Tao was incomplete back then, so I couldn't become an emperor. I could endure all that, but now that I've become an emperor, the path of cultivation is right in front of me. As long as I become a heavenly venerable, I'll have the chance to avenge my parents. I don't want to wait another day. Yan Honghua said in a low voice. Empyrean Ghost Blade knew Yan Honghua's temperament very well. He knew that once she had made up her mind, no amount of persuasion would change her mind. At that moment, Chu Kuangren walked in. Yan Honghua scoffed when she saw him and said, Grandfather, didn't you say that my achievements are unparalleled throughout history? Don't we have one now? And even more outstanding. Chu Kuangren, who had just walked in, was confused. What's going on? Is she complimenting me? She must be complimenting me. But why would she compliment me out of nowhere? And why does it sound a little weird? General, I'm here to bid farewell. I've been nagging for a long time, but it's time for me to go to the outer realm. Chu Kuangren said with a fist salute. He had come to the outer realm to train, so he could not stay in the general's residence forever. Oh, that's perfect. Empyrean Ghost Blade's eyes lit up and he said, is about to set off. Why don't you go to the 7th asteroid belt together? There's no need for that, Yan Honghua said. What's going on? Chu Kuangren asked curiously, and Empyrean Ghost Blade briefly told him about the 7th asteroid belt. The battle is intense, and there's a chaos spirit source. It sounds like a good place to train. That's right. With Brother Chu's strength, ordinary places can no longer satisfy your training needs. The 7th asteroid belt has recently been frequented by a lot of experts because of the chaos spirit source. It's a good place for you to train. Empyrean Ghost Blade strongly recommended Chu Kuangren to go there. Chu Kuangren understood what he was thinking, so he nodded after a moment of silence. I'll go there and have a look. Everyone who's going with me is a woman. It's not appropriate for a man to suddenly join me, Yan Honghua said. If you don't agree, then even if you hate me, even if I break your legs, I won't let you go to such a dangerous place. Grandfather, Yan Honghua was exasperated. She then took a deep breath and said, I can bring him along as long as the others agree. If you agree, do you think the others will say no? Empyrean Ghost Blade pouted. Yan Honghua was speechless. She glared at Chu Kuangren and said, "Let's gather at the army camp this afternoon. I won't be waiting for you." Then she flicked her sleeves and left. "Brother Chu, I'm sorry. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I want to go to the 7th asteroid belt anyway." Chu Kuangren chuckled. A chaos spirit source was also a type of spirit source, but it was much more advanced. One chaos spirit source was comparable to thousands of emperor-grade spirit sources. He did not want to miss out on such a treasure. "If that's the case, I'll have to trouble you to take care of Hua. I know this child has a bad temper, but there's a reason for it. Her parents were killed by a blood tribe heavenly honorable a few decades ago when she was still young. Since then, avenging her parents has become her obsession." Empyrean Ghost Blade told Chu Kuangren about Yan Honghua's story. Yan Honghua's parents died on the battlefield, and since then, she had been determined to avenge them. Hence, she trained herself with all her might. That was how she developed her competitive and difficult personality today. This story was nothing new. In fact, it could even be considered a cliché. In the extraterrestrial battlefield, such stories could be found everywhere. In the afternoon, inside the army camp, Yan Honghua's red-robed guards had gathered. Chu Kuangren arrived. "This time, Brother Chu will be coming with us," Yan Honghua said reluctantly to the red-robed guards in front of her. Then she said, "Of course, if you're not willing, I can report to my grandfather and ask him to leave." She looked at the crowd expectantly. She was just short of asking them to reject him. "What? Fellow Taoist Chu wants to go with us? That's great. Who wouldn't love to fight alongside such a handsome young man? Brother Chu, welcome. I hope you'll take care of us in the future." The red-robed guards whispered to each other excitedly. Yan Honghua did not look too good. She cursed in her heart. A bunch of superficial people. Chapter 708. "Let's go!" Yan Honghua yelled. She then took out a gigantic, dark battleship. This battleship was similar to some of the ferry boats in Firmament Star, but it was much larger. Moreover, it was made of a special material that was extremely tough. It could adapt to the chaotic spiritual currents in the universe and was equipped with various functions. The number 17 was engraved on the hull of the battleship. It meant that this was the battleship of Fort Number 17. One by one, the red-robed guards leaped onto the battleship, and Chu Kuangren followed suit. Then, accompanied by a loud roar, light patterns began to circulate at the bottom of the battleship, and a powerful propelling force erupted. The battleship activated and rose into the air. Below them, Fort Number 17 became smaller and smaller. "We're about to break through the barrier of the fort. Open the barrier." Barrier open. An invisible barrier appeared around the battleship. Soon, the group passed through the barrier of Fort Number 17 and arrived in the cold, silent universe. The chaotic spiritual currents around them were also blocked by the battleship's barrier, so they were not affected at all. "Show us the star map and confirm our course. Our destination is the 7th asteroid belt." Yan Honghua stood on a chair and said methodically. A gigantic star map appeared in front of the group. One of the light dots was moving. That light dot was them. Chu Kuangren watched on with interest. Then he looked at the boundless universe outside the battleship. Looking at the glowing celestial bodies in the distance, he felt a sense of insignificance. Compared to this eternal universe, the emperors were too insignificant. Even the entire firmament star was insignificant. Chu Kuangren looked at the star map and asked curiously, "How wide is the coverage of this star map?" Yan Honghua did not answer. Instead, it was Bai Lixue who smiled and said, "This star map was drawn by the Great Ones in Firmament Star. It covers a radius of 1 light-year with Firmament Star as the center." 1 light-year radius? Yes, about 2 trillion kilometers. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. He did not expect the concept of a light-year to exist here, and the value was similar. According to the knowledge he learned in his past life, a light-year was roughly equivalent to more than 940 billion kilometers. If it was converted to miles here, it would be roughly 2 trillion kilometers. We are about 1/20th of a light year away from the 7th asteroid belt. At the speed of the warship, it will take us about 7 days to get there, Bai Lixue said. This warship was the highest quality warship in Fort 17, and its speed wasn't much different from that of an emperor. Chu Kuangren was not in a hurry since he was still 7 days away from his destination. He found an empty room in the battleship and stayed there. Congratulations to the host for drawing the space-time mirror. On this day, Chu Kuangren had a lucky draw. His eyes lit up when he saw the prize. Including the lucky halo, the book of physique, and the omniscient spirit, this was the 4th transcendent reward he had received. He opened his inventory and saw a silver-white item that looked like a compass lying inside. The compass seemed to be formed by layers upon layers of circles within circles. One was made up of 9 circles, and in the middle was a white crystal with countless mysterious patterns engraved on it. Chu Kuangren could only tell that the 2 outermost circles were formed by countless Taoist patterns, but he could not figure out what the 7 innermost circles were. Retrieve the space-time mirror. After Chu Kuangren set up layers of restrictions around him, he retrieved the treasure. In an instant, the palm-sized space-time mirror appeared before him. Xiao AI, analyze the space-time mirror. Connecting to the consciousness of the universe. Analyzing. In the past, whenever Chu Kuangren used the omniscient spirit, Xiao AI, to analyze anything or anyone, he would get the answer very quickly. It was the same even when he was analyzing the mysterious heavenly punishment Taoist patterns. But now, when he was analyzing the time treasure mirror, he encountered difficulties. A full 2 hours passed. This involves the space-time laws, so I can't fully analyze it. Aren't you the omniscient spirit? The omniscient spirit, Xiao AI, was speechless. Who knew you have so many strange things on you? I can forcefully analyze it, but you must have enough cultivation to support it. Otherwise, your entire body, soul, physical body, and cultivation will completely collapse. Do you still want to try? Xiao AI said. Forget it then. Chu Kuangren did not want to lose his life just to analyze the space-time mirror. Then he simply refined the space-time mirror. Normally, he would not be able to refine a treasure that involved the laws of time and space with his current cultivation, but he had obtained it from the gacha roll. In essence, it was his possession. That was why he could refine it. Of course, he only had ownership over it. However, if he wanted to use it, he would have to work hard. 3 days later, Chu Kuangren simply refined the space-time mirror. Just like the book of physique, the item entered the depths of his soul. After refining it, he obtained some of the space-time mirror's abilities. The space-time mirror, as its name suggested, was a treasure that used the power of time and space. Space-time power was one of the most mysterious powers in the Great Thousand Cosmos, comparable to soul energy. The first ability, Time Halt. The name alone was enough to tell how insane this ability was. Of course, this ability was not without its limitations. It could only stop time within a certain range, and the effects would depend on the situation. The second ability, Spatial Shift. It could transfer items from one dimension to another. This ability was a little awkward for Chu Kuangren. After all, this ability overlapped with his spatial conveyor technique. However, after some research, he realized that this ability was not completely useless. It could be used in tandem with his spatial conveyor technique, allowing him to use the spatial conveyor technique with greater ease. At the same time, it could also become more powerful. All in all, the abilities displayed by the space-time mirror in the early stages had greatly benefited Chu Kuangren. If he continued to research it, it would definitely be of greater help in the future. As expected of a supreme deity reward. Everything is so surprising. Chu Kuangren smiled in satisfaction. He walked out of the warship's room and arrived at the warship's living room. Here he saw Yan Honghua. She was holding a book in her hands, and she was sitting on a soft leather chair, reading it attentively. As if she had sensed Chu Kuangren's arrival, Yan Honghua glanced at him and then ignored him. She continued to read the book beside her. Chu Kuangren was a little curious. According to the Ghost Blade Heavenly Honorable, Yan Honghua spent almost all her time on cultivation and battles in order to avenge her parents. She had no time to care about other things, so how could she have the time to read? What are you reading, young general? Yan Honghua hesitated for a while as if she was considering whether to answer Chu Kuangren. In the end, she said, The Human Ruler Lore. The Human Ruler Lore? It's about the human ruler. Yes. Chu Kuangren was even more interested now. I've heard some things about the human ruler from a few seniors, but I didn't know that someone wrote a book about him. Are you curious about the human ruler, young general? There is no human who isn't curious about the human king. He is a great king. Without him, the human race would still be under the rule of the gods, living a life of captivity. He is the first and only person in the history of the human race who can be called a king. Yan Honghua's eyes were filled with admiration. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.